It's just a little bit of sanity and sense at the end of the week. Well, talking of that.
That's what we like.
Yeah, here he is. Mike Graham, good morning.
Do you know, I stayed up all last night to watch you on Question Time.
Well, not all last night. It was at 10:45.
Well, that's quite late for me.
No, to be fair, I was in bed at that point.
Trust me. I watched your first answer. I watched something after that. And then the next thing I knew, I felt I'd fallen asleep and woke up and it was all over.
People.
Nothing to do with you. It's just such a boring format now. I have watch it.
Their viewing figures have gone down a lot.
It's just
I was
awful.
fascinated by how many people were tweeting.
You were great.
I won't watch it because Julia's on, or I'll watch it for the first time in a year because Julia's on.
Yes, I mean, most of my people on my timeline were like, well, we'll do the same as you, Mike, and watch it for the first time this year. And you were brilliant, as you always are.
Very kind.
Listen, I'm a great fan of yours, as you know. But
I'm not even paying him to do this.
They might as well just kill the thing off, mightn't they? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I think the key thing to remember, as someone who's been a panellist on Question Time for many years, is that we ain't the stars, the audience is. Yeah. And if you ain't got the audience
but they're
live
on a screen, what's all that about? And the sort of clapping that sounds like...
I think it works better than you'd expect it to work. But okay, you know what? Let's get back to the old normal, and then we won't have to do that anymore.
Exactly
anyway,
right.
What's on your show? We're already up to 10 o'clock.
Well, listen, we're going to talk about Barabara Windsor a lot because I think she was one of the great icons of the United Kingdom.
Her.
And anyone who doesn't know that, we'll be telling them why. We'll also be talking a little bit about Kay Burley. I don't think she's coming back. I think 6 months is a kind of put them on the long finger, and by the time 6 months is up...
Do you think it's too big a punishment?
Not at all.
I mean, I really want people exposed when they're hypocrites, and I think things would be different if we hadn't had those two as among the many journalists demanding more lockdown measures.
As Douglas said, it wasn't so much about what they did; it's about what they used to say. And similarly, last night I was watching the press briefing with Matt Hancock. The ITV science editor was saying, "Why don't you lock down even more now? What's the excuse for not doing it more?" Said, shut up.
But also, no one ever asks, what is your evidence for doing this, and why do you think it will work, and how will you know when it has worked?
Exactly, and we're doing a lot of that as well.
Brilliant. It's going to be a great show. It always is. You can watch live. We're streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter all day, of course. And I'm back. Not tomorrow. It's Monday. No, not turning up tomorrow.
What are you doing?
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to be sleeping in tomorrow, getting some well-earned sleep. I'm going to be back on Monday morning at 6:30 for your Talk Radio Breakfast Show. In the meantime, have a great time with Mike coming up, and a great weekend as well. This is Talk Radio.
Talk Radio. Across the UK, online, on DAB, and on your smart speaker. The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. We have reached the end of yet another tumultuous week, ladies and gentlemen, and we are still here. Meanwhile, the Brexit negotiations are entering the last chance saloon again. The government has once more warned us that tighter restrictions might be required for the latest COVID outbreaks in London schools, and Wales is still a basket case. After all, nothing much changes, really, does it? We'll be picking up the baton of public service with our favourite statistician, Jamie Jenkins, to get a handle on just where all this pre-Christmas cheer is going to lead us, because at the end of the day, the figures that we are being told are showing up rather than down really aren't particularly convincing as far as I'm concerned. And if you're living in Wales right now, you must be thinking, blimey, they're now shutting the schools. There's word and talk that they're going to sell no alcohol whatsoever, apart from online, that you'll be banned from buying it in a supermarket. We're told that London might be going into Tier 3, all because of one particular borough, which is so far east of London that it's not really in London. It's closer to France than it is to London Bridge, as far as I'm concerned. So what on earth is going on? We'll also be talking to Simon Calder, who is, of course, the travel guru from The Independent. He'll be telling us why there's now a problem with the Canary Islands, and we'll be checking in with our showbiz expert, Johnny Seifert, for an appreciation of Dame Barabara Windsor, Babs, who passed away last night peacefully at her home. If anybody ever personified what it is about Britain that everybody loves, I think it's Barabara Windsor, isn't it? I can't imagine anyone not wondering why and what is going to happen to her next, and just generally enjoying the stuff that she used to do. Forget about what she did at EastEnders, because Johnny is a big EastEnders fan. Just remember all of her career, the Carry On films, all the famous scenes that we all remember so well. We'll be talking about that as well. And as ever, of course, we'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear your hopes, your fears, and even your tears, because we are the home of common sense, and you are the people to bring it to us. We've heard an awful lot of you over the course of this week. We'd like to hear from more. 0344 499 1000 is also a very special Friday, as it is the last one before Christmas for producer Marta Malagon. She is heading back to Spain to see her family for the first time in a very long time, and as a result, she's put together the Perrior Perrior Awards of the year, which I'm really, really looking forward to, because it will show what a genius I've been over the course of the last sort of several months, and how few mistakes I've made during my broadcasting time. Also, Baroness Kate Hoey is going to be here. She's going to talk us through what's happening with the European Union and the scare stories that some people are spreading about a no-deal Brexit. Plus, Kevin O'Sullivan's going to be here with an update on the Woke Brigade, the Sky News scandal, and what he's got for us this weekend on Talk Radio. 0344 499 1000. And as if all of that is not enough for you, Dr. Rakib Ehsan is here too. He's got a report out on Islamic terrorism in the UK. We'll bring you up to date with all of that as well. You're listening to me, Mike Graham, right here on the fastest growing radio station on the planet. It is, of course, Talk Radio.
Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio.
There we are. You see, I didn't even know the music was going to end, and then it just came in there, just absolutely on time. Now, we've got lots to talk about this morning. We've got lots of people to refer to, lots of people to hear from, lots of people to listen to, but also, of course, we want to hear from you. So please do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Let's kick things off with what on earth is going on with the old COVID scenario. Jamie Jenkins is here, former head of health analysis at the Office for National Statistics. Jamie, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Very nice to see you again. Obviously, I suppose we ought to start with Wales, because we heard last night, or yesterday afternoon, rather disappointingly, if you live there, two things. One, that the schools are likely to close down, and two, that alcohol sales may be officially kind of banned completely, other than online.
Well, yeah, the kind of the situation in Wales at the moment then is that over the last kind of 4 weeks, we've seen this rapid rise in the number of cases per 100,000. And we get a couple of times a week, we get the First Minister or the Health Minister coming on showing this chart showing the rapid rise in cases for every 100,000. And it's actually the highest it's ever been in Wales. It may have been higher in the first wave, but we know, Mike, we weren't testing people as much during the first wave, so we didn't identify the cases. But what they don't say at the briefing is that we've actually seen a 70% increase in the number of tests in Wales over the last kind of month. So I think we had this kind of capacity in Wales of around 50,000 tests. It was kind of hovering around that for about 6 weeks. And we've started seeing an increase, I think, because more capacities become available to do more of these tests in the country. And as you know, when you test more people, you get more cases. So a big part of the rapid rise in cases in Wales that have been identified. So I say identified, that means that let's assume that we were doing the same amount of tests, say 2 months ago. I'm sure cases would have been much higher there, because you only obviously identify cases through the number of tests that you've got. So a big part of the rapid rise we've seen in Wales has been through more tests. It's real. It is a real increase going on in Wales at the moment. When you look at the percentage of tests that come back positive, it's not as high as what we reached at the peak on the 1st of November, but it is creeping back up, Mike. And I think what we've noticed in Wales over the last week is the First Minister and the Health Minister have been kind of coming on the radio and on the television, etc., kind of blaming the public for public behaviour.
Which is pretty low blow, isn't it? To blame the public for not doing what they've been told to do.
Well, I think with the behaviour, there's two aspects to this. Obviously, government policy does have an impact on behaviour. We had the fire break that came in towards the back end of October, and it runs through to the start of November. Now, when you have a fire break, you put a lot of restrictions in. And just before the fire break came in, I kind of said that all it's going to do really is press pause on the button with regards to all of this, because the virus isn't going to go away, etc. So what we saw is cases went up at the start because of the time lag. They started to come down, and then we kind of went into the situation in Wales where they were very kind of, it was like a free for all. I saw kind of on social media people piling into kind of shops, supermarkets, going back out to restaurants, pubs, etc. So you've kind of got 2 weeks worth of demand all going out at the same time. So public behaviour is also affected by these fire breaks. So there's talk of having another one perhaps towards the end of December. But as we know, that will probably just kind of pause the situation again, and then it'll kind of accelerate as we go in towards the back end of January. So I think for me, Mike, that there's a few things really. Yeah, cases are rising. That's an important thing. And there's a lot of talk in Wales as well at the moment about the NHS in crisis. And another interesting statistic on this, and again, there is a crisis in the NHS, but it's not specifically down to huge amounts of rising COVID patients. So the number of patients for any condition in Wales in intensive care at the moment hasn't increased over the last month. But what we've seen is the number of beds available for new patients come down dramatically over the last 4 weeks.
But that's always been the case in Wales, hasn't it? I mean, Wales, outside of all of the other problems that the NHS in England might have, has always been bad at running its own health service, and it's always been crisis time every single November and December, isn't it?
Well, what's kind of driving that big decrease in beds available at the moment is just staff shortages. So staff sicknesses mean that there's fewer beds available. And the total number of people in hospital at the moment in Wales, Mike, is actually similar to what we had in the middle of September. So so overall beds aren't any higher, but what we're seeing is more staff are off sick. And that's what's leading to the thing, not necessarily that more and more kind of patients are going into hospital, putting a lot more demand on the NHS.
No, exactly right. And also, you've said that very clearly in on your Twitter account that, you know, the number of cases in hospital has not risen. And I mean, this is what bothers me about all of this, Jamie, because we're about to do the same thing now here in London, where the powers that be have decided it's a good idea to start testing lots of school children in various schools around Kent, around the southeast of England, East London in particular. And all of that is going to mean that more cases are going to be found, that the numbers are going to rise. And people were asking me last night, is it better to shut the schools like they're doing in Wales, or is it better to test them? And I would say, I suppose on balance, it's better not to shut the schools, because for parents who need to be able to send their kids to schools so they can go to work, that's a good thing. But nobody seems to be saying, unlike you and I, when we have these conversations, is it not the case that these increased numbers are simply increased numbers because of the testing, and where they're not really increased numbers as a result of anybody getting sicker?
So I think, like say in Wales, we are seeing a percentage of tests coming back, going up, but it's not as much as the big rapid rise in the number of tests, etc. And that is the problem that I've always identified through the pandemic, is when you're comparing, say, the northwest, London, the southwest, etc. That's a bit of an issue where the number of tests might be varying. So it's important then, I think, Mike, to start focusing back on the death figures.
Right.
In London and the southeast, from the latest ONS statistics that we have, deaths there in London and the southeast are no higher than the normal 5-year range that we've seen over the last 5 years. So that's probably a better indicator. It's a couple of weeks lag on that. We are starting to see admissions in those areas, hospital admissions, that is starting to creep up. But the big issue that we've seen in this kind of second wave, if you're going to see, is this big north-south divide.
Yeah.
And we've talked previously on this, Mike, that there are a number of things that I think that need to be a bit more transparent with all of this. So I'll just talk about the first wave. We had this care home issue in terms of people dying in care homes.
Right.
I've viewed on your show and on many shows, families complaining that they're shut out of care homes, they can't go and see their loved ones. Now, if you look at the latest statistics from ONS, 1 in 5 of the COVID deaths have been in care homes.
Yeah.
So how are these care homes starting to become infected again? Is it because you're having staff who haven't got any symptoms going in, taking the virus in?
Yeah.
So coming back to your point, Mike, about should we be testing all the school children? Well, wouldn't it be better to save lives to test all of the care home workers on a daily basis with these new rapid tests? Yeah,
I mean, my understanding of the care home situation is that they're getting tested once a week in care homes, which is better than not being tested once a week, I suppose. But I also spoke to somebody this week whose daughter works for the NHS, and she's a carer who doesn't go to care homes specifically, but goes to individual homes of individual old people who need looking after, and she has never been tested. And you think, well, that's just bonkers, isn't it?
Well, we've seen in Wales, and I've seen reports that this is an acute problem in England as well. So this isn't just unique to Wales. So since the start of September, we've had over 2,000 patients in Wales who've actually gone into hospital without COVID. And the Public Health Wales have said that they've probably or definitely caught COVID in hospital. That's partly, I would imagine, down to kind of maybe infection control within the hospital. And maybe, unfortunately, staff who have no symptoms, who have the virus, are passing that on. Now, what we've seen with those 2,000 cases, a big number of those, we don't know the exact number of, because that information hasn't been made available, have been linked to the death figures that we're getting. And just yesterday in Wales, one health board had to issue an apology because they put a COVID patient on a normal ward with a cancer patient.
Right.
Or most of the ward then caught COVID. So I think we talk a lot about fire breaks, lockdowns, and I've said before, if you restrict movement, it does have an impact on the number of cases, but we know the impact that has on the wider economy as well with regards to all of this. But there are issues that we have more control over that we don't seem to be talking about from the government's perspective, which is these rising deaths in care homes, the rising deaths of people catching them in hospital, where a fire break or a lockdown doesn't fix that problem. And are we shining a light in the wrong areas?
Well, I mean, you'd have to say, Jamie, that looking at what's been going on in Wales since way before the fire break lockdown, it seems remarkable that no one, without any sort of sense of irony, is talking about the fact that maybe none of it's working. Because in Wales, where the lockdowns have been quite severe, and where now the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, is talking about, reducing the ability for anybody to have a drink in a pub, the cases and the numbers are still going up. So isn't there anyone in the administration in Wales going, maybe we're actually doing the wrong thing here?
Well, I think, because I live in Wales, and what it kind of feels to me when I look at the public and you see a reaction on, not just on social media, but just talking to friends, I think the First Minister and the Health Minister kind of reminds me of a bit like a football manager who's lost a dressing room, in that the kind of the public now are... You go back to September, Mike, we were told in Wales that you can't leave your local authority, but you can go to the pub. The policy now in Wales is you can leave your local authority, but you can't go to the pub.
Right.
We were told from several months that there's no relationship between schools passing on the virus and that transmitting into the community. But yet schools have been closed next week, secondary schools. So there's all these mixed messages. And I think that's where the public start then thinking, well, do we know exactly what we're doing with all of this?
And what is the logic behind actually shutting the schools? Because one of the things that they've been very clear about here in London, as far as Boris Johnson and Downing Street is concerned, is that they really don't want to shut the schools because, apart from anything else, it makes life very difficult for people who need to get childcare for the kids, which is very difficult to do. It makes all the difference in the world to people who need to go out to work to know that their kids are at school. I mean, what's the logic of shutting the schools down?
Well, I think the Welsh Government argument would be that if you've got lots of people mixing, and I think they've said there's no evidence that the school mixing is an issue. It's more people who are mixing after school with regards to all that. But if you apply what the UK government and Welsh government have both been saying, that there's no evidence that schools are causing the increasing transmission, then if you apply that logic, Mike, then there is no logic to closing the schools.
No, there isn't. I mean, my kids' school here in England have had maybe half a dozen cases since they reopened in September, and that's it. They send out a little letter. They tell everybody that the people who were the closest to those people who might have got infected, who are either teachers or pupils, will be told to self-isolate for 14 days. But they don't shut the school. They don't shut the year. They don't shut anything. They just go, OK, we've had one case. And that has been a perfectly successful strategy. It hasn't determined that more people got COVID.
Well, I think that's the bit of evidence that's kind of lacking, isn't it, with regards to the schools, that if there was a strong confidence that the schools were leading to the big increase, then, you wouldn't have the schools open in the first place. We did start seeing, Mike, the big rapid rise in COVID, the second wave start around the middle of September, about 10 days after the school.
Yeah.
And
Funny that.
So it could well be that there is an impact with schools, but the chief medical officers and chief scientific officers keep continually telling us that there isn't any impact. So if you're going on that basis, you would keep the schools open with regards to the policy, I think.
Well, I mean, the current line in England, anyway, certainly, is that, the reason for the mass testing is to discover how many people may have the virus without actually knowing they've got it, because it's that dangerous that you can have it without having any symptoms. But whether or not those people are then spreading it anywhere is anybody's guess. And at the end of the day, the idea that you somehow start talking about putting places into tier 3 as a result of a lot of school infections is completely bonkers in my view.
Well, what we saw in Wales, in particular in Cardiff, when the universities went back, we saw it in different parts of England as well. The big rises in kind of Manchester, Newcastle and Cardiff in particular was down to university students. We know the data shows that the majority of people who sadly end up dying with the disease are kind of the elderly and over 70, etc. So I think possibly, Mike, the kind of the rationale, and I know the teachers' unions have been calling to close schools, is that if children have the virus, the chances of them being seriously ill is very, very marginal. Right. I suppose they're looking at that if we close the schools now, that when we allow families to get together over Christmas, if a child does have the virus, if we have a 2-week gap between them having the virus, say, potentially in school and not knowing about it, and then mixing with, say, elderly grandparents, that will reduce their risk. But that also, though, Mike, goes on the basis that a lot of these, say, 12 to 16-year-olds are going to just sit in the house next week when the schools are closed. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know.
I know. It's a remarkable sort of mess that we seem to have found ourselves in. Jamie, thank you very much indeed. Jamie Jenkins, former head of health analysis at the Office for National Statistics. Let us know what your school's telling you. If you're in the area which we are currently discussing, which is, of course, Wales and or the southeast of England, we'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. What are your schools telling you as parents that they want to do? Also, we will be talking coming up later on in this hour about Barabara Windsor, who died last night quietly at home, it has to be said. I've got this from Chris, and there's a lot of messages coming in about Barabara Windsor. I went to see Barabara Windsor in Sparrows Can't Sing. I went with my mum. I was 11. We saw it at a cinema in Angel Lane in Stratford, East London. She was a national treasure and will be sadly missed. R.I.P. Barbara. I think everybody would say the same thing. Barabara Windsor epitomises for me many of the things that are great about this country, many of the things that are funny about this country, many of the things that are all about Britain. And I think we should all celebrate her life, and we shall miss her, of course, because of the fact that she did pass away last night quietly at home. This is Talk Radio.
Talk Radio with Mike Graham. Talk Radio. The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. Baroness Hoey will be with us later on in the show to talk about Brexit, what she feels about the no-deal scenario, which looks more and more likely at the moment. We'll take your calls on that as well, of course. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's get some news headlines. Here's Jenny Barsby.
Talk Radio. Half-hour headlines.
Tributes are pouring in for Dame Barabara Windsor, who has died 6 years after being diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She was best known for her roles in EastEnders and the Carry On films. Here she is in Carry On Doctor.
Good morning, Dr. Soper. Are we all loaded? I'm Nurse May. I was told to report here, sister.
Well, close friend Christopher Biggins has been sharing his memories with Talk Radio.
She was a total inspiration, and also she was a kind, good friend, and I can say that safely, having known her for, I think I've known her for 50 years. I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, she was always there for me, always there for anybody. You know, she was such a good friend.
It's emerged call handlers for the government's test and trace system only worked 1% of their paid hours in mid-June. A report by the National Audit Office says it shows they had little to do. It's criticised the Department of Health for spending £720 million on call handlers, but putting no flexibility in their contracts to reflect their workload. Tim Phillips, director at the NAO, has shared his conclusions with us.
The service is not yet having the impact it needs to on suppressing the virus. A lot has been done in a short time, and that's been costly. The budget for this financial year is £22 billion. The test and trace has some important achievements under its belt, but if you look at performance across the board, it needs to improve.
There's a warning that supermarkets could be hit with a £3.1 billion annual food and drink bill if a post-Brexit trade deal isn't reached. The British Retail Consortium predicts without one, 85% of food imports from the EU will face tariffs of more than 5%. And Heathrow's Terminal 4 will remain closed throughout next year as the airport revealed passenger numbers for November were down 88% compared with the same month last year. Just 747,000 people travelled through the airport last month. Heathrow is now urging the government to introduce full business rates relief for all UK airports and abandon plans to scrap tax-free shopping for international visitors. We have a cloudy day with scattered showers today. The best of any brightness will be in the south.
Of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. As I gaze out upon the skyline of London, there's no fog today. It's not quite as cold as it has been most of the week. A lot of people are already planning their getaways for Christmas and the holiday season. What we're not sure about really quite yet is exactly what is going to happen from week to week, because yesterday, of course, if you happen to be paying attention, you would have been rather surprised to learn that the Canary Islands have suddenly been removed from the travel corridor list. Let's talk now to our favourite travel guru, Mr. Simon Calder, to find out what he knows about it. Simon, very good morning to you.
Mike, an absolute shock to the entire travel industry and, of course, to hundreds of thousands of people who were planning to be in the Canaries, maybe flying today, maybe going for Christmas, New Year. If you go back 7 weeks, it was wonderful. The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said, OK, everybody, you can now go to the Canaries. I thought at the time, this is fantastic. Right. Exactly what we want. We'll be able to go on holiday right through the window. And of course, Tenerife, Lanzarote, Gran Canaria, absolutely fantastic all the way through from November to kind of March and April. April. Then 2 weeks later, we got the England lockdown, which knocked things out for 4 weeks. And then just as everyone was getting back on their feet last night, it's too dangerous out there. Off you go. You're going to have to find somewhere else. That will be Madeira or Gibraltar, I make it, in Europe. But the good news is, Mike, you'll be able to go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's now on the OK list.
Yes. I mean, it is very sort of random, it seems to me, Simon, isn't it? Because we always assumed that Gran Canaria and the other islands in the Canaries are relatively safe, not only because of the fact that they are pretty well isolated from the rest of the world, and people only really go there on holiday. You know, there's not a massive population, there's not a massive number of people going there who are not going on holiday, and it just seems to me that the people who are there currently will have to be back before 4 a.m. on Saturday, I think, in order to avoid quarantine, right?
I'm speaking to you from Stansted Airport, and flights have been tripling in price overnight.
Oh,
basically,
God.
of course, people trying to get back before the guillotine comes down, and then it gets really, really complicated. Next Tuesday, the government brings in this so-called test to release scheme in England, which means that if you pay for a test 5 days after you've left a quarantine country and it's negative, then you get to go. That doesn't apply in Scotland or Northern Ireland, and in Wales, and there you're going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks, whereas in Wales it's now 10 days. It's a complete mess, and all this is happening, all it's doing is making people unhappy, understandably, destabilizing the travel industry and making, just looking out the window here, Stansted, you can think of a million places you'd rather be than Essex, with the greatest respect.
Yes.
And almost all of them are off limits.
I have to say, Stansted Airport, possibly one of the worst airports in the entire world, and I've been to a lot of them. It's a very depressing place all round, and trying to get back
fine. It's what airports look. It's just what airports do from Stansted. I think it's the best connected, either Stansted or Manchester, best connected airport in the UK in normal times.
Yes.
You can get to 100 places. You might not be able to spell them. You've probably never heard of them. But you can get there and have a lovely time, we hope.
Let's talk a little bit about places like Manchester Airport, because, of course, Manchester's still in Tier 3. There's no reason why you can't go to an airport in Tier 3 and fly off somewhere, is there?
No, and that's part of the confusion and the conflicting advice. So, at the moment, I'm speaking to you from Tier 2 in Essex, I'm not allowed to go to Tier 3 unless I'm getting on a plane. Or indeed going to Dover to get on a boat.
Right.
So you're allowed to travel to these places in order to go somewhere else. But it is incredibly confusing. Of course, the rules from Scotland are tighter still. They have very strict rules about other parts of the UK and indeed Ireland, although yesterday they, I think, released most of the Republic of Ireland, apart possibly from County Kildare. It's difficult to keep up.
Right.
But we've just got this tangle of restrictions everywhere. And as a result of that, nobody's booking. Why would you?
Well, that's right. And that's the other weird thing, because Christmas is coming, right? And there's now talk of London being put into Tier 3 possibly next week. I'm hoping that's not the case. My daughter's flying in to see me from Dubai on Thursday of next week, right? If they put London into Tier 3... what does that actually mean for somebody arriving from another country into a Tier 3 city?
Right. Well, my understanding is that she is returning home. Effectively, and therefore she is perfectly entitled to return home. She won't need to quarantine because she's coming in from the United Arab Emirates.
Right.
So she will be, you'll be able to welcome her there. She will, I think, count as a member of your household for the purposes of that. And then, obviously, whenever she wants to head back to Dubai, although, of course, Mike, I can't imagine anybody would want to leave your excellent company.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
But assuming she does, she just heads for Heathrow and off she goes.
No, quite. So I can put the champagne on ice then and continue to chill it until the moment that she arrives. But, I mean, the other interesting thing is the conversation that's been going on over the last couple of days, Simon, about Brexit and what happens in January. We've heard sort of conflicting reports that the EU has said, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Even if there's no deal, we will extend the period of sort of transition, if you like, so that for 6 months you can still fly into Europe. But there were stories being written yesterday about how you wouldn't be able to go anywhere.
Okay. How many hours are you on the air for, Mike?
About another 2.5.
Yes, quite. Okay, well, we might just have time. Okay, so here's how it works. What the European Union came in with yesterday, mostly to do with flights, but also a bit to do with trucks, is just some very basic legislation, which means if you're planning to fly between the UK and the EU, well, you can carry on with those flights.
Right.
Until now, right at this moment, there's no legal basis for anybody to fly anywhere between the EU and the UK from New Year's Day, although you can fly over it on your way to somewhere else, like Dubai.
Right. Okay.
Right. Separately, you've got the EU COVID rules. Now, except they're not rules. The European Union says we really recommend that the EU countries, that all that usual hangers on, and that's Norway, Switzerland, Iceland and plucky Liechtenstein, plus at the moment the UK, here's the rule. We basically just say, let everybody else in from all the other countries, but don't let them in from outside Europe unless they're really nice and from somewhere like Australia or New Zealand or Japan, where they've got hardly any cases.
Right.
Now, from the 1st of January, we're not one of the hangers-on anymore. So if you're Norway, you just say, you're not in the third, you're a third country now, right? Well, you can leg it, basically. Right. Not many people, I think, are going to be going to Norway for winter sun in January, so that's not too much of a problem. And each country is, dare I say it on your show, Mike, each country in the EU is sovereign. It can decide whether to impose those rules or not, to make them easier, to make them stricter, whatever it wants to do, it can do. And so I've spoken to Cyprus and Malta, and they've just said, don't worry about that. It doesn't matter. We're ignoring it. In you come. We'd like you to have a test before you get here, but otherwise come here, have a lovely holiday, and you've got to quarantine.
So if I decided in the midst of January that I was so depressed that I fancied a quick trip to Lisbon or something, I could do that.
Oh, yes. I mean, the vast majority of countries that you would want to go to, and I've asked Portugal, I've asked Spain, they haven't got back to me. Oh, no, Portugal said they wouldn't comment because the negotiations are still ongoing. but they're not going to suddenly say, we actually don't want Mike here. Yeah. No, because you left the EU. But other countries will do. It takes us back to that incredible tangle of rules. But the report saying, no, 1st of January, you won't be able to go anywhere in the EU. That was, I think the technical term is tosh.
Well, that's what I thought, because I suddenly thought to myself, and I was talking to Marta about this yesterday, saying, look, if you wanted to stop something from happening, you would stop it from happening. You wouldn't say we're going to allow something to continue to happen by not stopping it. It just seemed to be a kind of a weird scenario, didn't it?
Yes. No, you're sounding more and more every day, Mike, like a professor of philosophy.
I know. Well, listen, the depths to my philosophical thoughts are never ending. Finally, let's talk about the future, because we're not far away from the new year. Is the travel business sort of, at least in some ways, optimistic that maybe come Easter we will start to see things kind of becoming a bit more normalised?
Right. Okay. Well, it was really looking optimistic until 5 o'clock yesterday. Well, optimistic, relatively speaking. This is an optimistic industry. I mean, it's a bit like you in the media. You've got to be optimistic, otherwise, you give up. So the industry of human happiness, as it always has been, never felt more miserable. This morning, absolute bleak midwinter. Yesterday, TUI, the biggest holiday company, was saying, actually, not only we've sold half our holidays in May next year. We're charging people 1/7 more than we were in summer 2019, so we're doing all right. We reckon by 2022 it's all going to be back to normal. And generally, there's going to be this sort of turning point when let's pray the vulnerable people in the UK and elsewhere are all vaccinated. Then you can start to think about what you're going to do about relaxing it. And they're not necessarily going to demand a vaccination certificate from you before you're allowed to get on the Eurostar train or a plane from Stansted. But if countries feel that their vulnerable populations are protected, then things will start to open up. That's the plan anyway. Of course, I think it'll all be fine by Easter, but I've been so comprehensively wrong at pretty much every stage in this, Mike. I've always just been thinking, it'll be all right, and it hasn't.
Well, listen, Simon, you might be wrong, but at least you're not an idiot. like Kay Burley just confessed to be. But listen, thank you very much indeed.
Poor old Kay.
Simon Calder talking to us live from Stansted Airport, the home and the hub of all things to do with travelling abroad. If you're in the Canary Islands listening to us at the moment, let us know what's going on. Let us know how easy it is for you to get yourself back to the UK before 4 a.m. on Saturday in order to avoid having to quarantine, because it came right out of the blue, this new restriction on the Canaries. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Talk Radio.
Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio. The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. Lots more for us to do. Big Perrior Awards coming up. It's an end-of-year Perrior Awards with Marta Malagon a little bit later on. We've got, of course, Baroness Hoey coming on as well to talk about Brexit and much else besides. Dr. Rakib Ehsan talking about Islamification and, of course, the Islamic terror threat in this country as well. He's got a new report out with the Henry Jackson Society. Right now, we're going to talk, though, about Barabara Windsor. Dame Barabara Windsor, no less. She's died at the age of 83. She's been in a care home for the last few weeks, and she was in the company, of course, of her husband Scott Mitchell when she did pass away. He's been with her for the last 7 days. Interestingly enough, I think Dame Barabara Windsor is a very sort of, telling member of the celebrity culture in this country, because while Twitter is remembering her, they've called her best known for her role as Peggy Mitchell in EastEnders. However, before EastEnders ever happened, she was a massive star of stage and screen and was more famous, I would say, for appearing in a load of carry-on films. Let's talk now to Johnny Seifert, Talk Radio's showbiz editor, because he, of course, much younger than me, I can't possibly tell you how young he is because it wouldn't be allowed, has watched her through thick and thin on EastEnders, but probably not on anything else. Johnny, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. And yeah, you're right. And the most interesting thing about that is that EastEnders and soap operas in general over the past 60 years since Coronation Street started don't normally take established people. Wendy Richards had done I Being Served.
Yes.
And that was kind of at that time seen as, oh, she is famous, but will people see her as a new character? And then Barbara came in and it was like, okay, Peggy Mitchell is here. The original Peggy was in it in 1991, and 3 years later they brought her back with Barabara Windsor, and Barabara Windsor then became the icon of EastEnders. She still is. If you look at any scene in the Queen Vic now in the pub, there's a picture of Barbara just behind the counter.
Right. So, I mean, as far as you were concerned, you sort of grew up watching EastEnders, and that's where you knew Barabara Windsor from, right?
Yeah, I had heard later on that she'd done the carry-on films. Obviously, I've seen that scene with the yellow bikini being flipped off her.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, she was EastEnders, and she still is EastEnders. And there was a big thing when she left EastEnders in 2010. The big question was, could EastEnders survive without her? And I don't think EastEnders has ever been the same since she left in 2010. Right.
Yeah, I think EastEnders has had a very interesting last few years, hasn't it? Because when it used to be the absolutely kind of dominating show on television, and, I think their Christmas special used to get something ridiculous like 23 million people watching it. It's nothing like that now. And I mean, even friends of mine that used to watch it have kind of given up on it now. Soap operas are kind of a thing of the past. But carry-on films, whenever they come on, I mean, I don't think I could tell you honestly that I've watched one all the way through, but you can watch it for sort of 20 minutes, and they're very funny.
Well, we miss that slapstick old humour. We're so kind of concerned with how we speak and that we don't want to offend anyone now. But this is why also pantomimes have always been so successful, because people love those double entendres. They love the silliness. They love the campness. And that's what Carry On defined. And that's what pantomimes have still tried to kind of emulate to today's generations.
Yes, exactly right. And as far as the showbiz world is concerned, Johnny, how have they reacted to Barabara Windsor? Because, again, she was a woman who had a very interesting private life. She was married to people who were, shall we say, in the past associated with our friends in the East End, who might not have been altogether the nicest people in the world. But, I mean, everyone loved her, really, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think that's the really telling thing. You see a lot of celebrities, and I know a lot of celebrities, you know a lot of celebs, and we know that off camera, they are very different people. I never got to actually meet Dame Barabara, but I've never heard a bad word said against her. I've always heard about her laughter, about how she would always stop for her fans and speak to every single person. And she was in that. What I love about Barbara and her friendship group was she was in that friendship group with Cilla Black, Paul O'Grady, Christopher Biggins, who was on with Julia early on.
Yeah.
And it was those iconic people, and they would come out together, and you're like, I don't care how old I am. I want to be friends with all of them. I want to be sitting at that table. Because imagine what those anecdotes would be like. Imagine the way that they would carry those stories. Obviously, they'd be fighting to say who's got the best story. But you can just imagine they know everybody. And I think that is really telling. And every celebrity today has come out and said, I loved you as Peggy, or I worked with you. There's not been one negative tweet. And usually when someone passes away, you'll get a couple of negative people, not a single one today,
No,
Mike.
of course. And also, I think she kind of heralds a simpler time. We sit around now wondering what on earth we're going to do next year. We don't know whether COVID is going to disappear or not. We don't know whether we can go anywhere. We're worried about Brexit. We're worried about European Union stuff. Politics is going on. Barabara Windsor, for me anyway, represents a kind of a kinder, gentler, sort of simpler time, really.
100%, and obviously in more recent years, since she came out a couple of years ago with having dementia, she and her husband Scott launched Dementia Revolution. They ran the London Marathon a couple of years ago with a couple of the EastEnders cast, and that was very telling as well, because she wanted to carry on educating people. She wanted to spread awareness, and you're right, it was a simpler time where she just wanted to go, look, this is me. This is where I am now. She came back to EastEnders about 4 years ago, and that was her big exit, and even that was like, this is me. I'm going to do one final scene in EastEnders, and it was the most amazing scene. It was so powerful. But yeah.
I mean, incredible, isn't it? I'm just watching, as we're speaking, footage of her meeting Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson giving her a kiss on the cheek. She was the quintessential kind of English pin-up, wasn't she?
100%. She actually did a scene with Boris Johnson. I think it was about whenever he was London Mayor. Don't ask me these.
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
They did a scene in EastEnders, and there was also a thing that in 2001, going back to Wendy Richards again, in 2001, the Queen and Prince Charles came to Albert Square, and Barabara Windsor was the one to show the Queen around. And Wendy Richards, there's a whole thing about how Wendy and Barbara could have fallen out over this, because Wendy walked around with Prince Charles and Barbara was with the Queen, and Wendy was like, well, I've been in EastEnders since 1985 and longer. So, yeah, but her and Boris Johnson, there was a very iconic scene in the Queen Vic, I remember.
How did Meghan Markle somehow miss out on that? How come she never made it onto the EastEnders set? I mean, for heaven's sake.
Well, she's an actress. She had done Suits, so,
Well, I mean, I'm very surprised. Now, more importantly, for looking ahead to next year, Johnny, I mean, I don't think I've seen you since March, have I? Are you planning on ever returning to work at any point? I mean, I know you're probably going to tell me that you've been working every single day, but, I know how easy it is working from home. You fall into, bad habits. You don't wear trousers, that kind of thing.
I mean, I am wearing a shirt for you, and I am wearing a pair of shorts underneath. I had to dress up on the top half. I ever come? Well, I am there. I'm there on a Saturday night with our dear friend Harriet Minter.
Oh, of course.
7 o'clock to 10 o'clock.
Completely forgotten about
always
Harriet.
Hear me
Is
there.
that show still on? Extraordinary.
That show is still on. It's thriving. I'm very excited for tomorrow night. I will be back one day.
Well, now's your chance.
The very long future.
Now's your chance to plug the show for tomorrow night. Who's on it tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night on Badass Women's Hour, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Me. That's about it, really, at the moment. I've booked myself.
Right, well done.
But look, it's fine. I've booked myself. Also, don't forget Andy J's Driven Show tomorrow with Barry from EastEnders, Sean Williamson, Shauna Phillips from Love Island, and Chris Packham.
Tremendous.
And we're doing a 1 hour Jeremy Clarkson special next week.
Fantastic.
I'll add that in as well.
When are you going to get me on that show, by the way?
I would love you to come on that show, Mike. I'm also waiting for your book. I saw you had a book coming out, and I want to put it on my radio bookshelf.
It is, yeah. You're not in it, though, sadly. But never mind. Listen,
Can
Johnny,
I come to the launch party?
Of course you can. I may get you to organise it. Thank you very much indeed. Johnny Seifert giving us the benefit of his great wisdom about Dame Barabara Windsor, who sadly passed away. She was suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. She hasn't been very well for quite a long time, but her husband, of course, was by her side. Scott Mitchell said, "It is with deep sadness that I can confirm that my darling wife Barbara passed away at 8:35 p.m. on Thursday the 10th of December at a London care home. She died peacefully, and I spent the last 7 days by her side." A fantastic woman, a fantastic career, a fantastic individual, really, and all terribly British, you'd have to say. This is Talk Radio.
Talk Radio.
Coming up in the next hour, we're going to take loads of your calls. Please do keep them coming. 0344 499 1000. Also, we're going to talk to Dr. Rakib Ehsan. He's got a new report out coming out very shortly, which is called Islamist Terrorism foreign national offenders and UK deportations. We'll be talking an awful lot about some of the things that have been happening in the news over the course of the last few days. We'll also be talking to Baroness Hoey coming up a little bit later on in the show. She'll bring us her latest view on what's going on in Brussels, what's going on with Brexit, and whether no deal is actually any kind of a problem whatsoever. I don't think it is. Do you? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Don't forget the Perrior Awards, a special year-ending edition coming up as well in the final hour of the show. Right now, let's get some news headlines. Here's Jenny Barsby.
Radio across the UK.
Good morning and welcome to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. We have reached the end of yet another tumultuous week, ladies and gentlemen, and we are all still here. We're looking at Brexit coming up later on with Kate Hoey, Baroness Hoey no less, who's going to give us the benefit of her view on whether or not a no-deal Brexit is actually a problem. I personally don't think it is. A lot of people are getting very worked up about Boris Johnson going all the way over to Brussels and coming back with nothing. In the end, as I told you yesterday, he shouldn't have bothered going. What was the point, to be honest? We've been talking in the first hour as well about the COVID situation, about how in London right now there's talk of possibly moving back into Tier 3 or just moving into Tier 3 as a result of a load of infections going on in schools. Similarly, in Wales, they're shutting the schools and they're telling people that basically all of the things that they've tried so far haven't actually worked. So what on earth they're going to do next is anybody's guess. We've also been talking about the death of Barabara Windsor, one of the great British icons of stage and screen, famously, of course, from the EastEnders soap opera. She was one of the stalwarts of the Carry On movement as well. We'll talk some more about her coming up in this hour with Kevin O'Sullivan, who's got a bunch of shows coming up both tonight and over the course of the weekend. We'll also be bringing you up to date with some breaking news. Police and paramedics are at the scene of an incident in Stamford Hill in North London where a car is reported to have mounted the pavement and struck a number of pedestrians. At the moment, it doesn't appear to be linked to anything sinister. At the moment, it just looks like a bit of a tragic accident. But if that changes, we will, of course, bring it to you. No information really on who has been injured and how badly they have been injured. We'll be talking, though, in this hour to Dr. Rakib Ehsan from the Henry Jackson Society. He's got a new report out about Islamic terror and its relationship with the UK. We'll be finding out from him exactly what the terror problem is in this country and why we can't seem to get rid of people that we don't want to stay here. 0344 499 1000. You're listening to me, Mike Graham, right here on the fastest growing radio station on the planet. It is, of course, Talk Radio.
Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio.
Now, I have before me a report which says this: Islamist terrorism, foreign national offenders and UK deportations. The author of the report, which is due to come out very shortly, is Dr. Rakib Ehsan, who we speak to on a regular basis on this show. He's with the Henry Jackson Society from the Centre on Radicalisation and Terrorism. Rakib, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. This is a very comprehensive report. I've been through it. There's been an awful lot of news of late, hasn't there? Of deportations of people. We've got Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, complaining about sort of that not only the radicalisation of people who commit terror and commit criminal acts in this country, but also why we can't deport them because of these kind of ambulance chasing lefty human rights lawyers.
Well, I think that, Mike, it's ultimately about how our legal system is currently structured.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're looking at the deportation of foreign criminals, including those who have been convicted of terrorism-related offences, I think there is certainly a growing perception among the British public that the individual interests of foreign criminals, including those who have been convicted of dangerous crimes, that these individuals, their rights are prioritised over British collective safety and national security. And I don't think that is a sustainable situation at all. And I do think we need a radical political shift which acknowledges that ultimately the responsibility of the UK government is to prioritise national security and maximise the public safety of our local communities.
Absolutely right. One of the things you and I talk about often, Rakib, is the public's kind of confidence in the systems that operate in this country. And if the people of this country don't feel that people are being treated properly, i.e., for example, we're watching this week the inquiry into the Manchester Arena bombing, and where we get the admittance finally from the police that, you know, the brother of the guy who was blown up by his own hand in that particular horror has finally admitted that he was involved as well. People think that, these guys should not be treated well. They don't believe that they should have any human rights. And I know that that's a very old-fashioned view. But the people, the electorate of this country, want to see justice being done.
No, absolutely. And I think that when we're looking at the case that you've mentioned, I think that all too often our political classes, they've been very complacent about the potentially devastating effects of failed integration, Mike. And the reality of the matter is, all too often we have been, very relaxed when it comes to people who may come from vastly different social, political, legal, and social contexts. Yeah. And we haven't really kept our eye, we haven't kept our eye on the ball in terms of looking at how those integration processes are taking place. If it's not going well, what can we do about it? We've been spectacularly relaxed. And unfortunately, that can lead to devastating consequences, including Islamist terrorist attacks on British soil.
I mean, we were worried, weren't we, a few weeks back when things started to begin to happen in Europe, where France saw a couple of attacks, Germany saw one. We were kind of, I suppose, girding our loins, if you like, sort of wondering whether we would be next. So far, so good. That hasn't happened. But, I mean, the undercurrent, obviously, is that in Western Europe, generally speaking, there's been a massive amount of immigration into our lands, most of which I'm sure is full of people who have not got anything other than, economic prosperity on their minds. But you're just not sure, are you?
Well, I think ultimately, firstly, I'd make the point, if we're looking at France in particular, I think that some of the criticism of President Emmanuel Macron has been hugely unfair. He's been accused of being Islamophobic, anti-Muslim. When you actually see what President Macron has said, he talks about a counter society, a minority within France's estimated population of 6 million Muslims. So he actually acknowledges that Islamist extremism, it directly impacts on moderate patriotic Muslims in his own country, as well as French mainstream society. And I think it is the case now that I do feel more and more European leaders are really waking up to the challenges within their own societies. Islamist separatism is a genuine threat to their, liberal democratic norms, and that it's time that a more robust policy action it takes place in order to push against that.
I mean, one of the things that I think I and many other people found particularly distasteful were the demonstrations outside French embassies around the world, including in this country and including in Saudi Arabia, where somebody, I think, was killed, by Muslims who said that they thought that France was Islamophobic. I mean, considering what had happened, i.e. a teacher had his head basically cut off, decapitated by somebody who claimed to be doing it in the name of the Muslim religion, was a shocking thing to see.
Well, I think that ultimately, Mike, we have to mention the fact that there have been non-Western political leaders who have been deeply unhelpful with their political interventions.
Yes.
The likes of Erdogan in Turkey, Imran Khan in Pakistan.
And the guy in India, the former leader, was it, or the current leader in
Indonesia?
Yes,
Mahathir Mohamad.
Yeah.
Malaysia. So ultimately, these interventions, what they did, they stoked the flames of anti-French sentiment, and they were responsible for portraying President Macron as an anti-Muslim demagogue, when actually he said in previous political statements that France needs to do more to enhance social and economic mobility in a city area, in city outskirts, which include impoverished French Muslim communities.
Yeah.
So I think that some of the criticisms have been deeply unfair and a fundamental misrepresentation of President Macron's views.
Yes, exactly right. And there's been a sense, Rakib, obviously, that in this country, the security services are always on constant alert to try and make sure that they foil more plots than actually ever happen. What is the sense at the moment of where that all is? Because, of course, the COVID situation seems to have put everything on hold, really, doesn't it?
Well, I'd make the point, Mike, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen Islamist organizations instruct jihadists to step up their efforts in Europe because they feel that public authorities are so preoccupied with the effects of COVID-19. They sense that this might be an opportune time to strike. What I would say when we're looking at this particular issue is that in the UK, there is really no room for complacency. Recently, the national terror threat level was raised to severe. But then when you hear stories of people who have been convicted of terrorism-related offences being released from prison, then we think, hang on, this is a genuine problem here. And I think what I mentioned in the report, that we have dozens of individuals, Mike, foreign nationals, who have been convicted of terrorism-related offences, who have served their prison sentences, but there's no official record of them being deported from the UK. And this set of people, they represent a serious risk pool within British society.
Well, this is the thing. And looking at the deportation problems that have happened, particularly most recently with those people who were supposed to be being deported back to the Caribbean, who hadn't ever been domiciled in this country, who hadn't ever been citizens of this country, and who yet were still able to fight for their human rights to stay here with the help of some rather misplaced judgments by celebrities and various people like Naomi Campbell, who thought that it was a great idea to keep murderers and rapists in Britain, even though they actually didn't belong here. What is that kind of balance about with human rights and with the safety of the public?
Well, Mike, if I could just build on the point that you just raised, I thought there was a appalling conflation between the Windrush scandal and the deportation of foreign criminals.
Yeah.
It was almost as if that the Windrush scandal was being exploited by individuals, including self-absorbed celebrities, in order to prevent the removal of foreign criminals from the UK. I thought it was appalling. I think more generally, though, Mike, when we're looking at the issue of deporting foreign criminals, including those who have been convicted of terrorism-related offences, we have to understand that the UK government, it has a handsome parliamentary majority. So ultimately, it's time for the government to reduce the gap between the rhetoric and the reality. And part of our post-Brexit national security strategy should be introducing a tougher border security arrangement, and things can be done. For example, modernizing legal definitions to ensure the smoother facilitation of deportation of foreign criminals. I also feel that there are provisions, Mike, in the European Convention of Human Rights which do clearly state that public authorities, they do have the right to interfere in the individual rights, right to family life of those, if they are considered to be a threat to public safety, national security, and if there's strong grounds to deport and interfere in that person's individual rights in the name of preventing crime and disorder.
Yes.
So I think that it's really time that the UK government engages seriously with this issue, and through legislation creates a tougher border security regime. And on top of that, Mike, as we've discussed before, I do think that with immigration and asylum reform, all too often our immigration system, asylum system, it doesn't prioritize national security and social cohesion the way it should. And that's definitely something that needs to change as we head into the future.
Oh, I think so, undoubtedly, because I think the scrutiny under which the government will come over the course of time with the dinghies arriving from across the channel, people are very worked up about that. And as much as Priti Patel has said, as the Home Secretary, we are working with France, we are stopping more people coming than we've ever stopped before. As long as the waters are relatively calm, these people will continue to come here. And the worst case scenario for many of us living in this country is that we really don't know where they're coming from, what their records are, if in fact, like I said, they may all be, as far as we know, economic migrants who want to come here for a better life. However, as Nigel Farage has often said, many of them will end up working in the black economy. Many of them will end up working in the slave business. They will work in the sex industry. It's not necessarily a good thing for this country to allow that to continue unfettered.
Absolutely. The UK's asylum system needs to have social cohesion and national security at the heart of it.
Yeah.
The reality, and an important point that I actually make in my upcoming report, Mike, is that there is a notable section of foreign national criminals who've been convicted of terrorism-related offences. They were either granted or claimed asylum in the UK. Now, that clearly tells you that at times, when it comes to asylum policy, Britain's benevolence and altruism has all too often been to its detriment, and that needs to change in the name of national security, social cohesion, and the public safety of our local communities.
No question, because we did see, did we not? I think in the case of the French teacher beheading, and also I think the German scenario, both of those individuals who had committed those acts of terror had come to mainland Europe on a boat from somewhere like North Africa. And so clearly there is a route that people are taking, and they have in mind things which are very, very nasty and horrible.
I'd ultimately say, Mike, when it comes to refugee and asylum policy, I think all too often there have been members of our political classes of different party colours, may I add. All too often they've been interested in virtue signalling on these kind of sensitive issues, making themselves feel good, when really, when they're examining these issues, they really should be prioritising national security and public safety, because that is ultimately their core responsibility.
Of course. And in your report, Rakib, you talk about various different organisations, terrorist organisations, which I think many of us have probably forgotten about. The Libyan Islamic fighting group, Al-Shabaab, Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Muhajirun, and Al-Qaeda, of course, which is one that most people will know. How active are all of those groups now?
Well, I'd say that when you make the point that, so this was ultimately looking at the set of foreign national criminals who've been convicted of terrorism-related offences and their organisational links.
Yeah.
I think that people will be extremely concerned by the fact that we have foreign nationals who have served prison sentences for terror-related crimes, who have links with prescribed organisations such as Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, Al-Muhajirun. It's quite, some people will just look at that and think, what on earth is actually going on here?
Right.
They'll be stunned. And on top of that, when we're looking at these kind of individuals, some have a history of participating in terrorist training exercises in Pakistan, but also in the UK. And the worrying thing, Mike, was that a notable portion of these individuals, they committed criminal offences before their main terror-related conviction.
Yeah.
And a point that I make in the report, I'm very clear on this. If a foreign national is convicted of a racially or religiously aggravated offence, that should result in an automatic deportation order. Because ultimately what that's done, that compromises the public safety in our multiracial, religiously diverse, democratic society. So I really do think that it's time for the government to step up to the plate, reduce the gap between the rhetoric and the reality, and adopt a robust policy approach on this particular issue.
Yes, because I think it's time for a change of view, really, isn't it? Because we've seen how previous policies have worked and how they failed, really, Rakib. What would you say, in conclusion, is your kind of your best hope, perhaps, for the outcome of this report, and your worst fear of what could happen in the year to come?
Well, what I'd say, what I'd like to see, as I've said before, I would like to see a policy shift in how we look at issues such as immigration and asylum. I think all too often we look at the economic benefits, which the economic benefits in themselves are questionable, Mike, as you know.
Right.
But we need to look at issues such as, to what extent will newcomers be able to integrate into British democratic society, our liberal democratic norms? To what extent are the social contexts they're coming from, how different, or rather how compatible are they with mainstream British liberal democracy?
Yes.
I think we really need to take that. We need to really look at issues such as immigration, asylum, social cohesion very differently to how we have in the past, because I think all too often there's a huge focus on economic issues, the economic dimension, but all too often we miss out on the more social and cultural dimensions. And the reality of the matter is, Mike, when we're looking at failed cases of integration, that in itself poses a public safety risk, because if people are poorly integrated, that does leave them more vulnerable to extremist influences, and that could lead those individuals to a very dangerous path indeed, and that could compromise our national security.
Of course. And Rakib, the report is out in a few days' time, I believe. Can people get their hands on it? Where can they see it?
They can indeed. Once the report is out, firstly, if people would like to follow me, it's just my name, Rakib, Ehsan on Twitter. I'll be keeping people up to date with the report towards its launch, and they can find the report on the think tank's website, www.henryjacksonsociety.org.
tremendous. Thank you very much, Dr. Rakib. It's a fascinating report, fascinating document. I would recommend anyone who find out what the current state of play is with regard to terrorism and radicalisation in this country. Check it out. The Henry Jackson Society is where you go to find it. This is, of course, Talk Radio. Don't forget, we are live streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. So if you want to watch us as well as listening, that's what you want to do. We've much more going on, much more coming up, including your call 0344 499 1000. It's just Talk Radio. All the way through to all sorts of people who starred in EastEnders. Of course, Larry Lamb, who played her husband Archie in the show, says the word star gets a little bit overused, and if you're going to be a star, you've kind of got to learn how to be one. She was like the head girl at EastEnders, he said, and he's talking about her in very glowing terms, I think, as everybody who knew Dame Barabara Windsor has said, because Tracy Ann Oberman, who was in the cast from 2004, said that she was like show business's fairy godmother. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman, because not only was she excellent at her work, she was also a really good human being. And so lots of really, really nice things being said about Barbara Windsor. Shane Ritchie said he's absolutely devastated at the news. Barbara was my friend as well as my TV boss in the Queen Vic. Daniela Westbrook said, my heart is broken. You will always be in my heart forever. Everything I learned from Barbara. So some really, really nice things being said about her. So we'll do some more of that as we go through the show this morning, because of course we've got much more to do. Coming up, we'll be talking to Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm sure he's got some things to say about Barbara Windsor, but also he may have a couple of things to say about what's going on at Sky News. Kay Burley and Beth Rigby and the other idiots who went out partying with her have all been suspended from their jobs from between 3 and 6 months. We shall see. I don't think she's ever going to come back. That would be my view. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's get some news headlines with Jenny Barsby.
The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. Now, I have to tell you, very exciting news coming up in the final hour of the show. We have got the year ending. I know it's a little bit early. It's only like December the 11th or something, isn't it, today? Friday, December the 11th. Yeah, there we are. We're having the year ending Perrior Awards, because Marta Malagon has decided that she's going to head for the hills sometime next week to go and see her family, which she's, of course, entitled to do. We have no reason to stop her from going. She may not be able to come back, of course, because come January the 1st, all things may change. But I think it'll be all right. But right now, let's go talk to Kevin O'Sullivan, because on the front pages, once more, I mean, for about third day in a row, Kay Burley, Beth Rigby, Skyfall is what it says on the front page of The Sun. Kevin, a very good morning to you. And, well, what can we say? We talked about this earlier on the Thought Police. I said Kay Burley was going to get absolutely hammered for this, and so it turns out.
Well, by the way, I've got my Christmas tree behind me, so I thought it'd be a bit festive for you.
I see that. Very
Won't
nice.
be a particularly happy festive period for Kay Burley and her Sky News chums. 3 of them have been suspended. Kay's got 6 months. The other 2, I think, have got 3 months. Now, the thing about it is, yes, that's a punishment, but it's the kind of punishment I wouldn't mind, because Kay has got 6 months fully paid leave. So it's like a vacation.
Yeah,
So
but if you know Kay Burley as well as I do, Kevin, and one of the worst things you can say to Kay Burley is you will not be on television. She doesn't care about the money. She doesn't care about the time off. She wants to be out there on TV.
I totally agree with you. This will be a punishment for her, but it's a strange kind of punishment. But I think, as you quite rightly said to Richard Madeley last night, Mike, this probably is the end of her tenure there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she'll ever come back. She certainly won't come back to the breakfast show, where they brought her in with great celebrations. This will be the saviour of Sky News' early bird show. She's been a disaster, getting viewing figures of about 90,000, which in television terms is absolutely basically zero.
Yeah.
So in a way, Sky News have taken the opportunity to take her off that show, and she won't be going back there. I wonder if they'll use her ever again. Meanwhile, you've got Beth Rigby, the political editor, forever undermined by her behaviour on Saturday night. I can't wait to see when she comes back. We see her there grilling Sajid Javid. She'll have to grill politicians in a different way, a more humble way in the future, prefacing all her questions with, well, Minister, as you know, we all make mistakes, but It's a very invidious position that these idiots that went out from Sky News on Saturday night have put their TV channel in.
They really have. And as I was saying yesterday, NBC will not look kindly upon this kind of behaviour, but also will be very interested to see why these people are paid as much money as they are, why they're not able to let them go as much as they would probably like to. And I think that the next 6 months will be a period of reflection for them. And basically they will find a way of letting it all disappear very quietly, I think.
Well, yes, and if you ever watch Sky News, it's fairly clear that no one at Sky News has any idea about journalism. And what they think they've done now is to incubate this story. And in 6 months' time, when Kay Burley returns to the airwaves, everyone will have forgotten. Well, if you'd like a lesson in journalism, everyone at Sky News, let me give it to you now. We won't have forgotten. People will go crazy.
Exactly. Also, they seem to be under the misapprehension that people around them don't know about the story. I don't think they've reported it yet, have they? I mean, I was watching Sky News last night, and they still, even though Kay Burley herself has admitted being an idiot, despite their own statement, I don't think they've actually covered the story.
I think that they have censored that story from their own schedules, which is pretty typical of that outfit. I mean, the real tragedy about Sky News is not just Kay Burley that doesn't get any viewers. The whole channel gets no viewers. I mean, it registers 0 on the rating scale time and time again because so few people watch it. I mean, unless you're really, really fascinated about single mums with mental health issues, you won't want to watch Sky News because that's about the only topic they ever cover.
But they do have a really, really, really important campaign, though, Kevin, that you've forgotten about, getting plastic out of the oceans. I mean, for heaven's sake. I mean, they sent people round the world taking pictures underwater.
Again, Mike, showing they know nothing about journalism. You and I, we're old Fleet Street hacks. We know the first rule of journalism. That is this. Never start a campaign you can't win.
Right.
And Sky have been waging this campaign, which they're doomed to lose, and they spend a fortune on it, shouting about plastic in the ocean, but they'll never win that campaign.
They never will. Let's talk about Barabara Windsor, because that's the big story this morning in the showbiz world. Lots and lots of people paying tribute to what is really a remarkable career, a remarkable woman, and really a very British icon.
Very much so. By the way, I was listening to Johnny Seifert, our showbiz editor this morning, saying that he hadn't really realised about Babs's carry-on days.
Yeah.
I mean, blimey, there is a whole generations. There are generations out there for whom Barabara Windsor will always be Busty Babs from the Carry-On movies. Right. But she was also an accomplished theatre actress. The famous producer Joan Littlewood took her to her heart, took her to New York to perform on Broadway in Oh, What a Lovely War. So let's not underestimate her talent as an actress. Obviously known best for EastEnders in the End, Peggy Mitchell, an icon. I had a lot of personal dealings with her over the years as a journalist, showbiz journalist, and I will say this. What you saw with Barbara was what you got. She was a nice lady. Every time you phoned her, oh, hello, darling, always wanted to help. She was not an angel. We tend to over-venerate people just because they die. She had her faults, but she was a lovely lady, straightforward, and I personally liked her and will miss her.
Yeah, I think so. But I think in a way, what Johnny said is kind of a tantamount to even more praise in its way, because what she did was more or less recreate a second career for herself. Because, yes, while the Carry On films, still some of the funniest things that anybody's ever seen, I would say. But to completely kind of change all of that and become the nation's sort of mother, if you like, as a character in EastEnders was quite a trick.
Yeah, she was the mistress of reinvention.
Yeah.
Did it several times in her career. A real survivor. I mean, at one point in her early career, things got so bad that she had to go back to working in a shoe shop in the East End and take a break from acting because she didn't think as a working class East End girl, she would be able to make it. So she broke that class barrier thing and ironically ended up with her, I guess, for most people, most famous role, playing an East End girl. So there was a sort of synchronicity about that. She will be missed. As you said, Mike, she's the epitome of Britishness.
Exactly right. Now, you've got a big show coming up tonight, and of course 2 big shows at the weekend. I won't be hijacking it this weekend, I'm sorry to say, because I'll be recovering from a session of dinner and drinking, no doubt. But what do you got for us?
Well, tonight, actually, funny enough, Richard Arnold, a very close friend of Barabara Windsor, he's coming on to pay a tribute to us. He broke down in tears this morning on GMB, reflecting on his friendship with Barabara. So that should be a poignant interview.
Yeah.
And I got to say this, Mike, come on, 9 p.m. Guess who?
Go on.
Engelbert Humperdinck. Come
really?
on.
Fantastic.
Yeah, half an hour with Engelbert Humperdinck. Beat that. At the weekend, I've got Charlie Lawson, our friend from Coronation Street. He's going to come on and talk about what it's like to play an evil villain on Corrie. And Linda Lusardi, former Page 3 girl turned a very accomplished actress, a big star on Emmerdale, will join me to reflect on her battle with COVID. She came very close. So that's going to be very good. And on Sunday, we're going to have a look at the wonderful world of UFOs. And we're going to talk to a nurse who turned whistleblower at the transgender clinic for kids, the Tavistock Clinic. So that should be interesting as well.
Well, just so you know why people are now watching Talk Radio in their droves rather than Sky. They've got the ludicrous Ash Sarkar on at the moment while I'm talking to you. So I'm just watching that on the other screen. No wonder people are switching off Sky News droves. Kevin O'Sullivan, 7 o'clock tonight, 10 to 1, Saturday and Sunday. Great 3 shows for you to enjoy over the course of the weekend. Kevin, thanks very much indeed. We'll see you very soon. Plank of the Year coming up next week, which Kevin will be part of as well. We'll be filming that next Friday, which is going to be very, very exciting, of course. I wonder who it's going to be. There's a couple of massive contenders for Plank of the Year. There's still time for them to rack up a few more points between now and a week from now. So we shall see how that all pans out. We'll take more of your calls, though, coming up next. 0344 499 1000.
Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. Baroness Hoey coming up in the next hour, which I'm very much looking forward to. Always a voice of reason, a voice of common sense on the Brexit situation. Rupert Lowe, former MEP, of course, for the Brexit Party, has tweeted this morning. If you told Brexiteers in the summer of 2016 that it would almost be 2021 and we would still not be free from the EU, many would not have believed you. Years of dither and delay, all in the hope of reversing the referendum, not a proud time for democracy. I think that's absolutely right. I mean, Boris Johnson, I think, as I said yesterday to Stephen Edgington, who's going to be putting out a podcast with me with the Sun Digital team later on today, as I said to him, I think Boris Johnson has met his Waterloo, if you like, and this is basically his opportunity to do the right thing, to get Brexit done, to get it done in the right way, and if necessary, to get it done without any kind of deal, so that the people who voted to get Brexit done in December of last year, almost a year ago, believe it or not, it was the 12th, wasn't it, the actual election day, where so many people in their millions voted to get Boris Johnson into Downing Street with a big enough majority so that he could do whatever he wanted. And I think that's absolutely right. Aran is in Teddington. Let's go to the phones. Aran, hi. You want to tell me something about Barabara Windsor?
Hello. Hi, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can. Please go ahead.
It's just a lovely little anecdote about Barabara Windsor. My dad was an actor called Tom Bell, and he was in a film called The L-Shaped Room in the early 60s.
Oh, I think I know that, yeah.
Yes, and he was co-starring in it with Leslie Caron, and he was from Liverpool.
Right.
He was like a working class, one of those hell-raising actors.
Right.
And he'd obviously had a few libations. He'd had a few sherbets. Right. And Prince Philip was talking, chuntering on, and my dad shouted out, because he was a bit merry, he shouted out, "Tell us a funny story."
Right.
And Prince Philip replied, "Oh, I suggest if you want a funny story, you hire a comedian." And he said, and my dad said, "I thought we had." But,
very good.
Anyway, the whole room went totally quiet, and Dickie Attenborough and Brian Forbes and all these bigwigs sort of were appalled, and they were seeing their knighthoods disappearing before their very eyes.
Yes.
And people were like booing and totally ostracizing my dad. But the only person who came up to him was good old Barabara Windsor.
Oh, really?
She grabbed his arm and defiantly walked out of the venue with him, and she said to him as he was going, "I've always fancied you, rotten." And it was just a lovely,
she's lovely,
story about her sort of being brave and, being brave and being the lovely woman she was.
I'm pretty sure I didn't actually meet her, but she seems very down to earth. All the people that tell stories like yours say that she was a lovely person.
Yes. That's what my dad said, and he always was had a fond spot for her for sticking up for him in his because the next day it was a big news story in the paper. Then actually being rude to a royal.
No, of course.
Apparently Prince Philip took it in good stead, but I don't think those bigwigs were very happy.
No, I'm sure. No, I think Prince Philip also one of the good guys as well. Aran, great story. Thank you very much indeed. Many people who have met Barabara Windsor tell lovely stories about her. I don't think I've ever heard anyone tell a bad story, actually, about Barabara Windsor. Just an update on what's been going on in London with that car incident. 5 people have been injured when the car hit pedestrians and it mounted a pavement in northeast London. Metropolitan Police say the incident, which happened in Stamford Hill, is not being treated as terror-related. No arrests have been made. So that's a relief, obviously, but obviously we'll remain concerned for those people who were injured. We'll keep you updated as long and as quickly as we can. Let's go back to the phone. So 0344 499 1000. Mary is in Hemel, Hempstead. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Michael.
How are you?
I'm okay.
I've not I keep hearing you on Talk Radio, but I haven't spoken to you for ages.
It's the job to get through.
Well, I know it can be a bit tricky, but how the devil are you this fine December?
I'm fine.
Good.
What I was saying about these people that we can't deport.
Yes.
It's no good blaming the lawyers. Boris has got an 80% majority, 80-seat majority. Why don't they just change the law, close the loopholes?
Well, do you know what? Funnily enough, I was on with Richard Madeley yesterday talking about this story about Lord Burnett. I don't know whether you heard, but Lord Burnett is one of those High Court judges who's one of those snooty types who thinks, how ridiculous is it that the Home Secretary and other assorted politicians would like to make the law harder and more sort of stringent for people that have to go before the judges, because the judges are in many ways as bad as the civil servants in this country. They're concerned that anyone who doesn't have a legal brain has got anything to say about it.
Well, I see where you're going, but I think I'm like most people, fed up with the soft sentences and things that are being given out by judges, and I often wonder if these judges had any of these people living near to them. Would they think differently?
Well, they might well do. I was reading
in the Mail yesterday about these Albanians, 69 Albanians that we couldn't deport because they hadn't actually stepped foot on British soil.
Right.
But isn't that splitting hairs? They were in British waters.
Well, exactly right. I mean, there's always one of these, and I will not shrink from calling them lefty lawyers, who make an absolute fortune out of legal aid, make an absolute fortune out of contacting these people. I wouldn't be at all surprised, by the way, Mary, if some of them have been in touch with them before they get here.
Oh, possibly, because we used to hear about how they used to go over to Calais. Do you remember when they used to be coming through on the Channel Tunnel?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, when they used
going along there, offering them leaflets of services they could offer them, and this, that, and the other. But just close the law.
Yeah.
Close the loophole.
No, listen, I agree. I don't see why they can't do that. Did you also see there was a piece of film the other day doing the rounds on Twitter of a lorry entering a ferry port with a couple of dinghies on the back of it, which they were obviously returning to France so they can have another go?
Oh, I've heard this before. I've heard that they're returning the boats back to France.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely extraordinary. No, you're quite right, Mary. I mean, I think we need to put as much pressure as we can, not just on Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, but also on the civil service, because I think she's trying to get the civil service to do what she wants them to do. And I think they are willfully attempting to prevent that from happening. Mary, a very sensible woman. She's been calling this radio station for a very long time, and we're very happy that she continues to do so. How about this from Mike in Oxford? He sent a very interesting a text here on the basis of the coronavirus scenario. He says, I see Dim Witty wants us to lock down for months to come. If I've got this right, the average age of death with COVID-19 is 82. Hardly anyone under 80 is dying with COVID-19. 50,000 deaths with COVID, say 40,000 age 88, 10,000 age 60 plus is the average age of the deaths. A lot of very old people have to die to get an average of 82. Bear in mind the dreadful way the numbers have been attained, putting cause of death, COVID, not presently with or previously tested with COVID, and the probable amount of false positives. Look after the old and vulnerable, like we always have. 10 months of madness is what we've seen. I think Mike in Oxford absolutely nails it there, because here's the problem. Every single time you hear the politicians going to the science to justify what it is that they're going to do, how many times have we seen the announcements and the graphs and the slides and, Whitty and Valence coming out and going, this is what we have seen. And then the next day, politicians coming out saying, this is why we have to do what we're about to do. In Wales, they've shut the schools. They're about to. Here in this country, in England, in the southeast, they're going to be mass testing pupils at secondary schools in parts of Essex and in parts of East London and in parts of Kent. God knows why, but you know what's going to happen. What they're going to do is they're going to come to you and say, oh, look, the number of infections has gone absolutely through the roof. Therefore, we must do something about it. Therefore, we better put London into tier 3. And then all of the people who have been trying to make a bit of money out of the hospitality business will be scuppered. And just before Christmas. It's an absolute and utter disgrace, as far as I'm concerned. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Baroness Hoey. We're going to get her views on Brexit. We're going to take more of your calls. This is Talk Radio.
Talk Radio.
Now, I'm very excited about the final hour of the show today, not only because it's Friday, not only because the weekend is looming, not only because we're getting very, very close to Christmas, not only because my daughter is going to come and see me in a few days' time, who I haven't seen since February, all right, which is very, very good news. What I can tell you is that we're going to be doing coding for kids as a bit of homeschooling with Scott McGready. We're also going to be doing the year-end Perrior Awards with Marta Malagon. And up first, before any of that, Baroness Kate Hoey from Northern Ireland is going to join us to tell us what she thinks of what's happening over in Brussels, what is coming down the pipe as far as Brexit is concerned, and also we'll find out from her what is going on in her neck of the woods, because they've just lifted some of the restrictions in Northern Ireland as well. Right now, though, let's get some news headlines. Here's Jenny Barsby. Good afternoon and welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. We have reached the end, ladies and gentlemen, of yet another tumultuous week, and we are all relatively still here. Meanwhile, the Brexit negotiations are entering the last chance saloon again. The government has once more warned us that lighter and tighter restrictions might be required for the latest COVID outbreaks in London schools. Wales is still a basket case. Northern Ireland, things are easing up a little bit. We're going to go over there very shortly to talk to Baroness Hoey. Kate Hoey, of course, former Labour MP, now instituted into the House of Lords. She'll tell us what she makes of the Brexit negotiations. We've been told that Sunday is the next deadline at which they're going to decide whether or not to extend the deadline yet again. We've also been told that basically in January everything's going to be fine because the European Union is going to make sure that trucks can still move between the countries, that planes can still move between the countries. The government has just announced that they've reduced the quarantine time from 14 days down to 10. There's an awful lot going on, including, of course, the Perrior Awards, which are coming up at the end of this hour with Marta Malagon. It's going to be a year-ending Perrior Awards, so you won't want to miss a second of any of that. 0344 499 1000 is the number. You'll listen to me, Mike Graham, right here on the fastest-growing radio station on the planet. It is, of course, Talk Radio.
Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio.
Now, it would seem that all the noises coming out of Downing Street are all about a no-deal Brexit, all about a no-deal with the European Union. All we ever wanted was our freedom, is what it says on the front page of the Daily Express. It's 1,632 days since we voted for Brexit, but the EU has never truly understood. We've talked about this quite a bit this week, and I think it's right to say that the European Union doesn't really quite understand why we want to leave, why people voted to leave, why we don't want to be part of their organisation, why we can still consider ourselves to be European and yet not in the EU. Let's find out from Kate Hoey what she's made of it all. Kate, very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mike. Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too. It's been a strange old week, hasn't it? Because there's been a bit of kind of deja vu going on where we've all been saying, well, this is a bit like the old times. And I never really believed that there was any point in Boris going over there for his steamed turbot and pumpkin soup. There really was never really going to be some kind of breakthrough happening. They're making a lot of noises about no deal, but what are you hearing?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult now to get a deal or a trading arrangement. I hate the word deal because it's, it was used when we were talking about withdrawal agreement.
Yes.
I think it's going to be very difficult now for the Prime Minister, given his very, very strong words last night and during the week about sovereignty, for any real rowing back on the three key areas, the areas of fishing, the level playing field, and just generally not having the European Court of Justice overruling us. So both sides now look like they want to be the one that isn't quite the one that walks away. But the problem is sometimes somebody's going to have to actually say, this is over. And I imagine what they'll do is have some kind of very careful, both of them at the same time, putting out a statement saying that, sorry, this hasn't worked out, but we're still good friends. Although I have to say, some of the things the EU has been saying recently makes me feel quite annoyed when ministers keep going on about our good friends in the EU.
Well, this is what a number of people have asked me about, this kind of conversation around the words partnership that people have picked up on, because it's the first time really that we've heard that we're going to have some kind of partnership with the EU. I mean, I personally don't really care what they call it, but in some ways it's important what they call it.
Well, yes, and I think most people who voted Leave and who are listening to your programme now, they didn't think about things like tariffs and trade deals and arrangements about this and that. They were voting, and certainly I was voting, on a very straightforward principle of our country being able to make its own rules and laws and control it. So all of the things that we've talked about. And of course that does mean that there are going to have to be changes. But I do find this terribly negative reporting from some media of what no trading agreement would mean, is making people even more frightened than they need to be, because clearly we're not going to stop selling things and people are not going to stop bringing things in. It's just that, it's almost the idea that if you don't have a trade deal, you can't trade.
Yes.
Now that's of course not going to happen. And it's all this nonsense about supermarket prices and so on. Well, I think that's up to our government to be actually telling the supermarkets very clearly, look, you're making a huge amount of profits. Make sure that any increase in the short term, and we all knew that there would be slight difficulties in the short term, clearly. But, I'm looking at things long term for the country. And that's why I really... The idea now is that we would end up with some kind of agreement that is allowing the European Union still to have control over any of our doings in our country, other than on a, chatting and partnershiping on certain issues to do with security and so on. I have no problem with that, provided we cannot be told what we're going to do and dictated.
Well, I'm a great fan of analogies, Kate, and I fancy this one, right? It's a bit like moving, going on holiday, finding that the hotel room they've given you isn't very nice and you want another one. The bad news is you're going to have to carry your bag to the new room, but the new room's a lot better than the old room. And I think that's kind of fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of very good analogies that come out about it. But it's just everyone wants, not everyone, a lot of people want to make it as difficult as possible. Clearly those people who, isn't it ironic that all the people who were saying, isn't it dreadful, it's going to be terrible if we leave the EU and we'll be absolutely sunk as a country. And yet the EU is so terrified of us being a great country and being able to do so much better that they want to still control how we run our economic situation. And I think people are now just fed up. They want to get it over with. Let's get a stop to this on Sunday night. It would be really quite ridiculous if they say they're going to carry on talking for another few days.
Oh, I know, because there doesn't really seem to be any point. I mean, as the Express has pointed out this morning, it's now 1,632 days since the actual decision was taken. And I found it very bizarre yesterday, Kate, when they came out and said, well, obviously, come the 1st of January, if in fact there is no deal, the planes will continue to fly, the cars will continue to pass through the borders. And it's like, well, the only reason that wouldn't happen is if you stopped it happening. So why do you have to say that it will continue to happen? Because you don't really need to do that, do you?
Well, it just kind of adds to all of us who felt all along that the EU were so angry that we were leaving, because they were terrified that, you know, other countries might think about it too when we are successful. And then the idea that they would still actually keep fishing for another year, just like that. I mean, that is just not acceptable. And I think the vast majority of the public, even those who didn't vote to leave, must now see that when they see what's happening within the European Union, that we're much, much better off leaving.
Oh, absolutely right. And I mean, in the post-COVID kind of atmosphere and economies that we're all going to be inheriting and we're trying to recover, I mean, I think it's a far better position to be in, not to be attached to the EU, where they would no doubt be asking for the old begging bowl to be filled up every 2 seconds, you know, because, we've got to help out some country far and away that isn't doing as well as we are.
Yeah, they will miss our money enormously, and I think that's part of the problem with the EU. You know, they know that we have been paying almost more than many other countries. I think we're the second highest contributor apart from Germany, and that can't go on. And certainly when we look at how they sorted out the money for COVID and trying to make each country pay, I'm very glad that we're not part of it. I think we need to remind people now that we're actually not in the European Union. And what this is about is a trading arrangement. But, you know, the world will carry on trading, whatever happens on January the 1st between us and the European Union.
No, exactly right. And what are you making of the way that the kind of internal markets bill is being sort of shunted backwards and forwards? Because obviously it went to the House of Lords, certain things were taken out of it. The government said they were going to put them back in. Now they're saying they might not put them back in. I think people are probably incredibly bored by this whole conversation. But what is actually going on with that?
Well, I think it was, the internal market bill, the sections on it to do with the clauses to do with Northern Ireland were there sort of as a safeguard if the European Union didn't show goodwill in terms of the detail of what was going to happen between Northern Ireland and Great Britain and Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Michael Gove, of course, went over, had a cup of tea or, I don't know, perhaps another nice lunch, and came back and said, it's all okay, don't worry, we don't need it anymore because the European Union is going to, in principle agree to all these things. Well, my view of in principle with the European Union, until you've got it actually completely locked down. So I was disappointed that they took actually having, argued strongly to keep it in the Lords and lose heavily, then go back to the Commons and put it in, and then come back to the Lords, for the Lords presumably to have tried to put it out, for the government itself to take it out. And I think, as Claire Fox, Baroness Fox said yesterday, I think on your programme, it was like being marched up to the top of the hill and then, oh no, they'll go down again. And the whole thing was just ridiculous. And I spoke in that and said that, that people would feel this is just not sensible that we're doing this, because we don't trust the European Union. But in the House of Lords, as you probably know, there's huge majority of Remain Lords who love to come out and vote on anything to do with the EU.
Oh, they do, as indeed do certain sections of the media who have not stopped with their kind of relentless campaign of negativity. They're still doing it even now. You still get people on social media saying, well, tell us one good thing that's going to happen after Brexit, or, tell us one rule that the European Union makes us adhere to that we won't have to adhere to in the future. Just accept it, move on and get on with it. Well,
and occasionally it would be nice if the BBC had something positive about some of the good things. I mean, one example there was something about, the banning of export of live animals, which people have been crying out for a long time, and we couldn't do because of European Union rules. And now, DEFRA, the Department of Agriculture, has brought that in, and that will happen. Now, that will upset, obviously, some farmers, but on the whole, that's something that we weren't able to do. The irony is you won't be able to do it if in Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland is still staying as part of that little EU, EU rules on certain aspects of our trade, which I'm disappointed in. But it isn't actually going to change the constitutional position of Northern Ireland, I'm pretty certain.
No, I'm pretty sure of that as well. I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who said, what do you think is going to be happening? What's it going to be like? I don't think much is going to change at all. I think you and I, Kate, will still be able to sit down, presuming, COVID restrictions allowing, in a restaurant. We can have some steamed turbot if we wish. There won't be any real problem with getting any sort of foodstuffs into the country or medicines into the country. it will be, I think, we will look back on this whole period of history as a massive complication of something that should have been quite easy to do.
I think you're absolutely right. When the history is written, there will be a lot of people who will feature as being people who have just, made it so difficult, something that could have been relatively easy. But you're saying about the restrictions, because I'm moving back and forth from Northern Ireland to London. I kind of wake up in the morning thinking, oh, now are we in tier 3? Can I go out? Everything is different. And of course, in Northern Ireland today, everything's opened up again. Except pubs can't open unless they're serving food, and some of the pubs and restaurants have chosen not to open. But on the whole, Northern Ireland, all the shops are open again. We had a 3-week lockdown, and then a 2-week back, then a 2-week lockdown, and now we're back to sort of the new normal until it comes to nearer Christmas, when we go over to the Christmas rules, which I think the rest of the United Kingdom has.
It's terribly frustrating, isn't it? Not least for many, many small businesses. I mean, we're being threatened currently in London with going back into tier 3, or going into tier 3 for the first time, based purely and simply on a bunch of statistics which are coming out of Havering, which is almost, I was going to say, so far east of London that it's nearly in France. And we're told, oh, well, you're going to have to shut all the restaurants and the pubs, which would be absolutely devastating for so many people. I get calls every day now from businesses, from pub owners, from hotel owners, who are desperately worried that their businesses are just going to completely collapse.
Yes, I think small businesses can't just keep having this 1 minute this, then change, then back again. It is so dispiriting, and so many of them are literally on the breadline of deciding whether they're going to be able to open again. It's just wrong, and I know we kind of share the same view about the idea that the more people we test, the more people obviously who are going to have had COVID or have it. I'm very, very frustrated about it, and I do think that the country as a whole is just so fed up that we're actually now getting to a situation where they're doing what people should be doing anyway, which is doing what they think sensible. And looking after themselves and looking after their friends without having to be dictated to about every single thing you do.
Yes, quite right. I mean, that was always going to be the kind of slight dichotomy, I suppose, for those of us watching things as they've been unfolding this week from Sky News, where, Kay Burley and Beth Rigby have now been suspended from their jobs for 3 months and 6 months, respectively, because part of me thinks, what it was that they did was not the worst thing in the world. However, they're in positions of some privilege, and they have been particularly hard line about people like Dominic Cummings and others. And so I think it's probably right that what's happened to them has happened.
Yes, I mean, I think there it's the hypocrisy really of both of them in a way, and who've given people who've come onto their program, if they were lucky enough to get asked any kind of came on with any criticism of what was happening, treated them as if they were some kind of you just want people to die attitude. Right. And so I think there'll be a lot of people who won't necessarily be upset that they're not going to see two of those particular Sky people on television. I just wonder, are they still getting paid while they stay at home for the next 3 months?
Well, I mean, I'm less concerned about that, really, since they're not working for the BBC. If they were working for the BBC, I would be a bit more concerned about whether they're spending my money and travelling around the world and having a lovely time. But, I mean, what's happening as far as the Irish situation goes in terms of Dublin? Because they're kind of between a rock and a hard place at the moment, it seems to me, because it looks like the EU's kind of thrown them under the bus and just gone, well, we'll deal with you later.
Yeah, I think, it doesn't get much publicity, but there is a growing number of people in the Republic of Ireland who are thinking that perhaps just as they joined the European Union after the European Community when the United Kingdom did, that they should be thinking that longer term they will want to leave as well, because their links with the UK are so much greater than their links in terms of trade with the EU and all of that. We're such closely knit. We've got the common travel area. You can be British and Irish. You can vote in England if you're Irish. All of these things. It just doesn't long term make sense for the Republic of Ireland to be on that sort of extreme end of the European Union and still being part of it. They have, I think they've been used. I think the European Union has used the Irish in many ways, and the Irish have used the issue of, as I've said before, the border to get some things that they wanted. But long term, they'll be, as you say, put under a bus if it suits the European Union.
Well, that's right. I mean, I remember reading a story about a month or so ago saying that, there was a threat to Ireland that they could lose their ability to export Irish sort of meat products to England, which is their biggest market. And so they're suddenly going, well, hang on a minute, we don't want this to happen.
Yes, I think there's a lot of businesses and traders in the Republic of Ireland who over the next week or so will be beginning to perhaps realise that this is going to affect them, more than it's actually in the end going to affect perhaps Northern Ireland or indeed certainly the United Kingdom. But time will tell, and as you say, I just think most people will wake up on January the 1st and won't see a huge amount of difference, any difference at all in terms of what's happening to them. And for those businesses that are worried and affected, there will be support and help, I presume, from government to get through it. But for me, it's important. I mean, it will be a very important day, January the 1st, because although we've left, the transition period has meant that we haven't had any real differences. So it's going to be a nice New Year's Eve.
I think so, yeah, despite the fact, as I said to my son the other day, we'll be waiting up till midnight, but for nothing to happen because there are not any fireworks going on, thanks to Sadiq Khan. But finally, Kate, what about the future for the EU once we do leave? Because I think once it sinks in to a lot of other countries that the biggest or one of the biggest countries in Europe has just decided to opt out of it, I think that's bad news for the future of the EU, isn't it?
Well, I think they are bound to be worried about that, particularly as we're seeing some of the Eastern European countries like Hungary and Poland or flex their muscles a great deal more and not be prepared to put up with some of the Commission's decisions. I mean, it really does show just how undemocratic the Commission is, that countries can be overruled. We saw what happened to Greece a few years ago. So I think it could be just that catalyst, us leaving, that really does make a lot of other countries begin to realise, especially when we start doing very well, as we will do. I'm absolutely confident that our country will, we've got all that entrepreneurs and we've got the technology, we've got people who really want to make things happen. And when that all happens, I think there'll be a lot of people in other countries saying, hang on, maybe we should do the same. But I hope it's a lot easier for them than it is for us to leave.
Absolutely right. Listen, Kate, great to talk to you. Have a great Christmas if we don't speak before that happens. And we'll speak to you in the new year when we are free from these particular binds and the particular ties that we have to the European Union, which will be great, actually. I don't think you should in any way worry about whether that will be a bad thing, because it will not be a bad thing. Trust me. 0344 499 1000. We've got HomeSchooling coming up. We've got the Perrior Awards coming up. We've got Ian Collins coming up at 1 o'clock. All sorts of great delights going on here all the way through the day at Talk Radio. Mark Dolan as well from 4 o'clock. Much else besides. This is Talk Radio.
The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
I'm watching Mark Drakeford on one screen and Nicola Sturgeon on the other screen. I have to say, it's doing my head in. Drakeford apparently saying he might have to move into Tier 4. Whatever that is. Let me just tell you, by the way, there's a bit of a problem on YouTube, and there has been all week. We'll be trying to fix it within the next few minutes. But for uninterrupted viewing, head to Twitter or Facebook, which is why we are streaming there as well as on YouTube, because on the YouTube stream, it's a bit of a problem. We'll fix it as soon as we possibly can. Let's go back to the phones, though, before we do anything else. Bill is in Cheshire. Hello, Bill.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, sir. What can I do for you?
I got a bit annoyed this morning. I was listening to Julia, and she was talking to some guy about whether the European Union was justified in trying to impose the Court of Justice, or whatever court it is, if we should change any of our terms and conditions.
Yes.
And he was saying to her that because they're far the bigger marketplace, they should be able to. Julia's comment was, well, we don't allow China to dictate to us. Why should we allow Europe?
No, exactly. And the whole point of leaving Europe, leaving the EU, is that we determine our own fate, don't we?
Yeah, but his reply was, but Europe is a much bigger market. And in all the debates I've heard, I've never heard anybody say that the UK is the bigger market.
Right.
Because we take billions more from Europe each year than they take from us.
That's right. Most of the businesses in this...
Which means in terms of market share, we're bigger.
Yes. I mean, technically, it would be correct to say that the EU is a bigger marketplace than Britain, purely because of the numbers of people that live there and because of the numbers of countries that it encompasses. But actually, in real terms, you know, most of the companies in this country don't do business with Europe.
The term market involves money, not area.
Yes. No, I know. But, I mean, you know what it means. I mean, lots of people use words in different ways.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that this is what irritates me, that nobody actually uses my point.
No, you're absolutely right, and you're quite right to make it. I shall tell Julia later on that you've called and what you've said is entirely correct. How about this from somebody called Johnny? The regular phone chat with Mike Graham and Kate Howie. Poor old Johnny doesn't even know how to spell Hoey. It's Hoey, mate. Spending 15 minutes agreeing with each other. Actually, I think it was more like 20, so that's your second error. 2 blinked Brexiters. I presume you mean blinkered. That's your third error. So 3 strikes and you're out. I'm not going to bother reading the rest of it, I don't think. What a moron, Johnny, you are. Let's get some news headlines. Here's Toby Gillies.
Talk Radio. Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio. The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Coming up at 1 o'clock, Ian Collins will be here to take you through the afternoon till 4, of course, and it's Mark Dolan on 4 for Drive, of course, and Dan Wootton will be back next week. We've got lots more going on here. We've got the Perrior Awards. I'm very excited about it because it's the end-of-year Perrior Awards with Marta Malagon. This is the last Friday she's going to be here this year, believe it or not. I can't believe it's getting so close to Christmas. Now, though, let's go and talk to Scott McGready, cybersecurity expert, because it's homeschooling time. We're just after the news at 12:30. If you've got your kids at home with you, have them listen into this, because this could not only educate them, it could turn them into future millionaires, right? Because we're going to talk about coding for children. Scott, very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Afternoon, Mike.
Now, I don't know if I've oversold this particular section of the show, but I mean, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to explain something to me which I basically don't understand, which I want my children to learn how to do so that they can keep me in the style to which I've become accustomed.
Well, this is the thing. You can actually teach an old dog new tricks. I think learning coding is applicable to anybody because it's almost like when you send your kids off to learn rugby, football, ballet, or to scouts.
Right.
You don't actually expect them to become the next David Beckham. What you're actually teaching them is how to make friends, how to interact with people. You're teaching them critical thinking. Yeah. It's the subtext in what they're actually learning.
Right. So what is coding, first of all, exactly?
Oh, coding is, we call it programming or coding. It's basically we're creating software or programs. So everything you look at right now, we're using technology to talk. How that's made up, it's the physical composition or the makeup of everything you see or interact with. Every website you visit, there's code that goes behind that, whether it's the way it looks, how it feels, or how it actually interacts. When you click that like button, something happens in the background. It's all code that makes that possible.
Okay, so when you learn about coding, you're presumably learning. It's a bit like an alphabet, I'm assuming, that you learn the sort of the basic rules of it, but you then use those rules to create something unique.
Absolutely, and there's a myriad of languages. I think there's a few million out there, and it is very much like learning a foreign language.
Yeah.
Although the concepts are very similar, you have to learn how to talk to a computer and get it to do the thing you want. Okay, I want to build a website. How do I do that? Here's the best language to do so. This is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to achieve it. And although the languages may change, so the way you speak to the computer may be different at any given point, the underlying concept is always critical thinking, problem solving. You're basically solving the same problem.
Yes, and I'm interested in this partly because both of my kids have been doing sort of various IT classes at school, but they don't really teach them coding, which I think is a bit of an error. I don't know why that is.
I fully agree. So there are a few educational programs out there. I think the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, actually run a few courses over the summer for specific interests. So cybersecurity, or anything around sort of cybersecurity or information security. But skipping over that fundamental basic, it's kind of like coming back to a point you just said about the alphabet. You're skipping over that standard basic block building method to learn. So for example, right now we're teaching a few people just, you know, the ropes in information security. And one of the first things that we tell them is, look, you got to go out there and learn coding. Just it's a skill that every one of us has. And when you look at a problem and go, hey, I can write a piece of code to solve that.
Right.
Like that should be your go-to, not, oh, how do I solve this? Okay, I'm just going to copy paste stuff that I don't really understand.
Right.
We should be teaching kids earlier.
I think that's right. And when you look at a piece of coding, because you're an expert in these matters, and particularly like security on the internet and that kind of thing, can you kind of identify a piece of coding and where it emanated from?
Yeah, so all languages usually are in American English. So that's why a lot of emails I send tend to be, you know, little red lines underneath them because I've used the wrong word color or I've used the wrong forms of stuff. But yeah, you can absolutely determine, it's almost like a fingerprint. You can determine how a programmer has written something, maybe where they've been educated, how they've been educated, because it's almost like going into your bathroom and looking at a really bad tiling job. Yeah, you can tell straight away, hey, this is a bit of a cowboy that did this. Whereas you look at the tiling job in my bathroom, you go, wow, I clearly did that myself. It's bad. It's really bad.
Well, I mean, I'll take your word for that. What about sort of how easy it is to learn coding? And if they're not getting taught in schools, or they're having to learn it themselves, where's the best way to do that?
There's a myriad of free courses online that are good for so for example, I learn entirely differently. I'm a very visual based learner. It took me years to realize this. I don't like reading textbooks and regurgitating. What I like to do is get hands on and, you know, start playing around and figuring stuff out. Break it, fix it, break it, fix it. Okay, now I understand that. And there's a myriad of courses out there that are designed with different learning pathways. So for example, a visual learner or a textbook-based learner, they're all free. Everything is available to download. You can literally just go on Python, PHP, Perl, Ruby, download these languages and actually start to understand them. You don't need to spend thousands and thousands on training courses. You can if you wish, but it's kind of like being a self-taught musician. You just pick up an instrument and go for it. The only benefit here is you don't need to spend £500 on a shiny, you know, guitar or flute or whatever.
And if you can learn coding, what does that sort of give you entry to afterwards?
Well, there's a ton of jobs in the information security landscape, so in technology. But here's the thing, we're in a digital world now. You're talking an admin assistant that has to process thousands upon thousands of payroll entries. They could do that in a script in a couple of minutes. So it's not just a technology-based job that they could be looking at. It could be anything. And I honestly think every single person I meet, I don't care what industry they're in, the first thing I say is you've got to learn how to code, because it will teach you how to look at problems, break them down, put them into little kind of pockets and then deal with them one by one. And then, you know, you've wrapped up that problem. But also, if you can make your life a bit more efficient, even in a workplace, by using a piece of code, it's 10 times better. And it's so much fun.
Yeah, well, I'm going to see my kids later on. I'm going to tell them to get on it and learn some stuff that might actually be of some use to them. So where can I tell them to go? Where should they go?
Oh, if you have a look online, there's a couple of courses on Pluralsight. There's a couple of courses on Udemy. There's Open University courses.
Okay.
This stuff isn't immensely hard to find, but have a look at reviews. So if you're going on for courses, have a look at reviews. People often leave a review saying, hey, you know, I'm a text-based learner. I like reading textbooks. This is right up my street.
Yeah.
There is a website out there called tryhackme.com, which is a really, really good beginner's guide to any information security topic, and programming and scripting and networking or any technological concept. It's incredibly good at both going, here is what we want you to do, but here's how you do it. And it's incredibly good at joining the dots. I'm a big fan of that.
Okay.
side.
Well, I'll have them do that, and that'll be something for them to do over the weekend instead of hanging about on their PS4s, for heaven's sake. Great stuff. Thank you, Scott McGready, there, internet security expert, giving us the lowdown on coding. It sounds to me as though that is the future for anybody who wants to get a decent job sometime whenever the decent jobs start coming back into fashion again, once we COVID secure the entire nation and the entire world. So I'm going to be getting on that. 0344 499 1000. We've got Ian Collins coming up at 1 o'clock. Coming up next, though, it's the end of year Perrior Awards
on Talk Radio.
It's Friday, it's 12:47, and it's time for this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Perrior Awards.
Literally no compliance whatsoever in the back room. Oh, there we go. That's better. This what's going on? I mean, this is the final one of the year.
This is very disrespectful.
It is.
Insubordination.
I'm already feeling insulted in a horrible way.
I'm going to suspend all of you for 6 months.
6 months suspension, that's it.
But no pay.
No pay.
No
Right.
pay.
Absolutely no travelling to Africa either.
Absolutely not.
That's it. On you go.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
And welcome. No,
Yes.
you're welcome.
No, I'm welcome.
You're
Thank you.
welcome to the Perrior Awards. This is normally when we look back over the past week.
Yes.
Of the so-called
So-called
Independent Republic of my Graham on Talk Radio. But because it's the last one of the year.
Yes.
Because I am going to
How did we get here so quickly? I don't know. The end of year Perrior Awards.
It's
Extraordinary.
ridiculous, isn't it?
I know.
I mean, 2020
But it's
is
exciting
just-
though. You're going to go and see your family.
Yes,
For the
which
first
I'm
time.
super excited about.
In really, what, 11 months or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
it's
So I'm going to
ridiculous.
see my daughter for the first time since February, I think. She was last, which is going to be lovely.
Yes.
You know, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's good. Listen, good things ahead.
Yes.
Which is what we like. And, you know, especially the next 10 minutes or so.
Mm.
So, as I said, this is where we normally look back over the last week. But
Yes.
because it's the last one of the year, it's going to be the last 6 months or so.
Excellent. And there'll be things we've forgotten, obviously.
Yes, definitely. I mean, thankfully, I write everything down, so I've got most of it. But anyway,
That's
enough
good.
of this because there's a lot to get through.
Yes.
It's always tradition, Mike, that the first Perry goes to you.
Thank you.
And that's going to be no difference today. In fact,
Excellent.
most of them go to you.
Good.
This is the first one. Is a compilation that I've simply just called Confused Mike Graham.
What are we doing? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's get some news headlines, shall we? Yeah, it's time for Rachel Jewell. It is Tuesday, so let us say a very good morning to Neil Oliver, our regular correspondent up in Stirling, Scotland.
I'm sure it's Wednesday, Mike.
Absolutely. Well, Nigel, thank you very much indeed. It all kicks off Wednesday, May the 20th, I think I'm right in saying. Sorry, May the 1st. I beg your pardon. May the 13th.
Tomorrow, the 13th, it kicks off and it runs until the 3rd of June.
I've gone mad.
1 p.m.
Yeah, sorry. I've suddenly become kind of digitally an idiot. Sorry about that.
Radio.
Now, it's Tuesday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday.
That's happened a lot.
Maybe I just don't recognise Tuesday somehow. Or
Well,
Wednesday.
Or any other day,
Well,
really.
Well, it's very, as I say, it's difficult, you know, when you say as many words as I do to
Listen.
get them all in the right order.
Mike, it's very difficult to be switched on at all times.
It is.
And even guests and callers, sometimes they get a little bit confused.
Yes.
This one is a classic. It's the Perrior Award for the wrong namer of the year.
Let's talk to Lee, who's in Harrogate. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Graham. Nice to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you. How are you doing? Let's take some calls and find out. Francis is in London. Hello, Francis.
Hello, Ian. You okay?
It's Mike, actually. Let's go to the phones first of all, though. Harry is in Buckinghamshire. Hello, Harry.
Hi there, Graham. I mean, Mike.
Dr. Penkani, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Graham.
Dr. Barrett, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning to you, Graham. Good
Thank
morning.
you.
We're not prepared, Graham. I'm so sorry.
Listen, Dr. Barrett Penkani, thank you. I didn't want to correct you at the time, but my first name is actually Mike. Graham is my second name. Let's talk to Gabby, who's up in Edinburgh. Hello, Gabby.
Hello, it's Dexter, by the way, Mike. Hello there.
Who is it?
Dexter. Just call me Dexter.
Oh, Dexter. Okay. I don't know why it says Gabby then. That's not even. That doesn't even sound like it was a mistaken hearing problem.
My surname is Gabby, and it's just been.
Oh, I see.
mispronounced.
Sorry, Dexter.
Yeah.
Dexter's good. Let's talk to Pete in Hounslow. Hi, Pete.
Pete, it's not Pete, it's Ian.
Oh, it's Ian. Hello. Sorry, it says Pete here in front of me. I don't know how that happened. How are you, Peter? Listen, great questions. If we ever get Matt Hancock on this show,
It's difficult.
listen, that could have gone a lot worse.
I know. I
Really?
know. It's the almost
It
swear
is
of the
difficult,
week.
isn't it? But it's not. Half of those weren't even my fault, though.
No.
I was given incorrect information.
Yes, I think it's incompetence.
I think so. I think an incompetence report must be issued.
I don't know who's running the show back there, but honestly,
absolutely shocking.
Not a good job.
Yeah.
Now, I've had to dig...
Making me look stupid.
Yes, which is unacceptable. For the next one, I've had to go deep in the archive to find it. The following Perrior Award was presented to you with a £75 fine. Ooh. Which you still haven't paid, by the way.
Okay.
The pine was for the pine.
The pine. No, see, it's happening to you now.
That's it. The fine was because you were littering the studio, and yes, that's right. We go all the way back to April to find the first time of many that Mike Graham ripped up the Guardian.
See the word Guardian, and it makes me feel.
In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rip it up. I'm going to rip the Guardian up right now, live on the radio. It's absolute rubbish. I mean, even if I was editing it, I'd say to them, for God's sake, get some MP. I don't care how far back on the back benches the MP is. I don't care. I'm just absolutely not going to stand for this unless you get me a quote from someone who says, we're worried about a power vacuum.
Yeah.
That was Kate Hoey.
Yes, it was, yes.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Very good. I like the sound effects as well.
I know, it was good ripping, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, great
Fantastic.
sound effects. Now, sometimes interviews get interrupted by all sorts of things, by people in the background, doorbells, delivery drivers. And one of my favourite things to collect over the last few months has been dogs barking in the background. However,
yes.
I'm not going to go for a dog. Instead, this Perrior goes to travel guru Simon Calder for the animal intrusion of the year.
My goodness me, it's all confusing.
Well, it's a very big area these days, isn't it? Keeping up with various different countries. You're being attacked by some seagulls by the sounds of it, so you might want to take cover.
Yeah.
They're huge, those things, and indestructible, by the way. They might carry you off.
Bless him.
It was a very dramatic encounter, that.
It was very dramatic, but even more so because Simon Calder not only gets one Perrior Award, he gets two. Live from Venice earlier this summer, he gave us the boat collision of the year.
Is it an actual river? I don't know. You've got river specialists who will be able to tell you that.
Well, do you remember?
Crikey, and we've seen our first collision.
Oh,
Did
good.
You see that?
Goodness me! Listen, you might have to be a witness to that. You better get your.
Well, we got it all on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. He said it as if he was expecting more.
I know, as in like
our first collision.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had any more, thankfully, because that's what we want. Now back to Mike. As I've said many times, you're only human.
I am.
You only very, very rarely make mistakes. However, I must admit, the next one I've had a lot of fun putting together. Enjoy. It's the best of. Oops, Mike forgets how to speak again.
Good morning and welcome to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk Radio. We've been, what's the word? I've completely forgotten the word now. And we've got a bit of baking for you too before the end of the show. You're listening to me, Mike Graham, right here on the fastest growing radio station. Well, I thought she did actually, because the thunder is I can't speak. Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham, Borough Market. One of the greatest food outlets, I should say. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Loads of Imon is in the Midlands. Imon, hi, how you doing? I should say.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
It's hard to say Imon and hi one after the other, apparently. I don't know why I keep going bleh. Why do I keep doing that? I didn't even know that I was doing that.
I don't know, but it's hilarious. So please carry on.
I'll try. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. No, thank you. And time for another classic now as well. The likes of Lewis McCart should be really, really concerned, because if there's anything we've learned this year is that Mike Graham has got this natural talent when it comes to celebrity impressions. And his best work is, without a doubt, the Duke of Duchess of Netflix, Harry and Meghan. Please enjoy.
Welcome to a new TV show, like of which has never been seen before. The Only Way is Sussex. With me, the Prince of Sussex, and the Duke of Netflix, Harry Windsor, and my beautiful wife, Meghan Markle.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear baby Archie. Finding freedom. Because we've been in chains. We've been kept captive by your family. Now we've escaped to Chateau Marmont. Have you ordered some more avocado, Harry? We're nearly out of it. What are you doing, Archie? Nothing. Why? I haven't got any friends. Why? They don't like you.
Bless.
Poor old Archie.
Poor old Archie, yeah.
Yeah. There's not much of a Christmas coming up for him, is there?
Well, no, they're
No
in
friends.
lockdown in California, aren't they?
Lockdown in Montecito.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have a carrot on toast.
Tragic.
Oh, well. And for all the haters out there who will say, oh, well, he can only do Harry and Meghan, that is very unfair. And I've got a collection of the best other impressions of the year.
The doom and gloom, and, there's nothing good going on, and not very good for us or them or you. She used to be famous for having a very nice, homely sort of attitude and talking like that a little bit, and talking about how she still got the Chinese in, and she still liked to eat takeaway food, and she still liked to, do the dishes. Sky News is now ready to declare the winner of the US presidential election of 2020. Knowing me, furloughing you. Aha! As Jack Nicholson would say, is there any other kind? I cannot in all good conscience support Boris Johnson in this law-breaking endeavour. Can we not have £20 for every man, woman and child in Scotland? My favourite, Ian Blackford.
That was Ian Blackford, and we also had Keir Starmer, Adele, Adam Bolton, Alan Partridge, Jack Nicholson, and Geoffrey Cox.
Yes. Keir Starmer sounds a lot like Adam Bolton, doesn't he?
Yes.
Funnily enough.
We might need to work on that a little bit.
I might have to work on
Just
that,
a
yes.
tiny
well,
bit.
luckily we've got some time.
Yes, well, thankfully. And also, I'm sorry I'm late, but hey. And finally, this year has seen the creation of the James Larvin Perrior Award for Technical Incompetence, named after our actually very competent engineer, James Larvin, which is very ironic, I know. Unfortunately, I have been unable to pick up just one because there have been so many.
Right.
So here's this year's Best Perrior Awards for Technical Incompetence.
We've still got to have a look at the government's own website, and this is very important. If people want to go to...
Obviously, this
I think we may have just lost your line there, David. We'll try and get it back. We can still see you, but we can't hear you anymore. It sounded as though it was one of those 12:18 things that used to happen to us when we were in the old studio, and suddenly the line would just go dead. Trying to have conversations with the government to try and clarify a few things.
Yeah, we've met with government on Friday.
That's it.
That's it. I remember the 12:18 disappeared already. We'll get him back because so many people are going to be sick. And all the people that went to the Mardi Gras have flown back to their communities in different parts of America and are currently spreading the virus. Are you still there?
No.
Where's Peter gone? Let's try and get him back because we haven't finished yet. Not quite sure what happened.
I'm not saying it kills the virus, but once it's out in the open, like you're coughing, the light...
Oh, do you know what's happened? It's 12:18. This is so weird. We've gone again. This is amazing. You could not make this up, I tell you. Every day, 12:18, phone box shuts down. That's true. If you can show that you've had a negative test yesterday or something, you ought to be able to be allowed in, right? I think we may have lost Dame Esther. Are you there?
I think we did.
We'll try and get Dame Esther back because I think we just dropped the line.
The Independent Republic of Mike Graham on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. Here we are. I'm playing back, for some reason, my own voice, which is very strange. It can happen.
Radio.
Even my phone started talking to me now.